But let's talk about some of the more innocuous things that are on the market that are leading into these things. I mean, what could we call something like Smurfs? Is there anything occultic or dangerous about Smurfs?
Well, Smurfs happens to be the most popular Saturday morning cartoon since the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner hour. It's just entered into a long-term run, and it's hit an hour and a half on Saturday morning cartoons. But there are some things about Smurfs that we need to look at. First of all, you'll notice that they're depicted as blue with black lips.
Well, isn't that interesting?
And you know what happens to you when you die? You turn blue and your lips turn black.
In other words, these are depictive of dead creatures.
Right. And another thing is that Smurfs is an all-male community. And you say, oh, there's Smurfette. She's a female. Well, in one cartoon, she was depicted as transforming from a male to a female through magical power. And so the only female in the Smurfs is transformed from a male. She was not born a female.
No, what you're telling me then is that even Smurfs carry a homosexual connotation in that most of them are male.
I believe so.
Now you know.
Smurfette is a troon.
The dark secret is out, guys. The dark secret is out. Who doesn't like a completely context-free introduction to something?
Particularly when it involves transgendered Smurfs.
No one deserves a warning on that. No, you gotta hit them with the the subversive Smurf straight away. Hey everyone, welcome to Double Feature Horror Show. This is episode 21. And we got a slightly odd one today. It's not our usual style, and it's not our usual panel. But I hope we can have a good time. You will notice the absence of some of the stalwarts of the show. Sadly, we cannot be joined by either Harrian or that crime guy today.
Oh no! Anyway,
I know we miss them. We mourn them. We wish we could be holding them tight right now.
For you.
However, instead, we have two brand new guests. We have Mitch. How you doing, Mitch?
How you doing, sus amogus imposter Fortnite gamers?
Oh, you are so down with the kids.
I am right,
man. Oh,
how do you do, fellow Zoomers?
Oh gosh, I don't actually know. You do you have Zoomer credentials?
No,
like
I am a millennial. I was born 1993.
Thank goodness. Oh,
that's still dangerously young.
Well, I don't know. From my perspective, I'm dangerously old.
It feels like that, doesn't it?
It does.
And we also have a slightly unusual guest here. I've actually got my wife on.
Oh,
hello, wife.
Actual wife. Hello, wife.
Yeah, not a sub-in wife, not a stunt wife, an actual wife.
I made an honest woman of her about 2 weeks ago. No, 2 weeks, 2 months. It's been a long time.
Yeah. Now, waifu has been very forgiving of my I think you could say an obsession with horror. I think that'll be fair. I'm gonna risk embarrassing myself further than I already have by putting on this particular meme, which I'm going to take off screen right now for everyone's comfort. I'm sure you've all been adequately horrified by it.
Now that is a proper horror show.
Telling a little story that, well, when I was trying to convince you that this was a good use of my time, well, would you like to describe how I introduced you to horror?
Yeah, sure. So the only horror film I'd seen before starting to date Chloe was Hide and Seek with, I've immediately forgotten his name.
Robert De Niro.
Thank you. I was going to say Robert Downey, which would be a very different film. So I had minimal experience of horror, and Chloe obviously is an obsessive. So she informed me that she had a horror syllabus that she wanted to work through with me. Yeah, that's kind of where we've ended up now, where there's very little I watch that I find actually scary anymore. So I'm an entirely broken human.
Well, you know, as Harry Potter studies and golf management studies have shown us, if you just put something in a syllabus, it's respectable, right?
So I
Yes,
was
just
told.
watched Dank's recent video.
Oh, which? Oh gosh, yes. Is
The one
that the
about Postel, the
Yeah.
guy who pretended to be a psychiatrist.
Oh, that is pretty legend. I was loving that. That's high
They
level
may have
troll
an
game.
interview, by the way, if you look on Twitter.
That's awesome. That's so okay. I have got to watch that now. As for you, Mitch, it's probably worth asking since this is your first appearance on the stream. What's your sort of background with horror? Are you a regular horror watcher?
I'm not a regular,
dipping in
but
and
I'm well
out?
into it. Basically, I dip in and out, but that's for all film. So I go through periods where I don't watch any films, not because I can't be bothered. I just don't for whatever reason. But now recently, I'm getting back into it. So now I'm just trying to watch as much as I can when I'm not tired. So I am actually going through 80s horror and a little bit of 70s, and looking at my tabs, a few 50s and 40s ones as well. My first horror film was when I was about 13, 14. And it was, believe it or not, Halloween H2O. But as a young kid, it was the first scary film. So I was interested. Obviously, if I was to watch it now, it would be terrible. And I have seen much better John Carpenter films, like The Thing, The Fog, all sorts. And to be honest, when I was at uni or just in A-levels, this is like high school senior for you Americans out there, I started getting into Videodrome, like from Cronenberg and all those other people.
Oh.
And then it just went from there. Like I'm very much into the 70s and 80s kind of stuff, and also the 50s and all the classics too. But in particular, the Hammer horror stuff because it's gory and violent.
Nice, yeah.
But
I mean,
I
you
have
sound
respect.
eclectic. You sound
Yeah.
eclectic.
I don't like the modern stuff as much, but I find the foreign stuff is much better. So like the most recent horror film I watched before, actually no, this is the most recent one that was modern. I watched in the cinema was Julia's Eyes, if you've ever heard of that. That's a Spanish one.
Ooh,
I guess it's a horror film, but
well.
it could be. It's about a little girl who's losing her sight. I think she's got like cataracts, something like that. I don't know. Slowly losing it, and she's being stalked. But because she's losing her eyesight slowly, it starts from her peripheral and slowly, gets to your frontal vision, whatever you call it. And she doesn't know whether or not she's being stalked or not. Like every time she sees him, he's not there, and nobody else can see the person, and it's really good. I thought it was good. It's Spanish, obviously.
Nice.
And there's a death scene in it that is the most ragdoll you'll ever see. Like I can't believe the guy managed to do it.
I'm intrigued. No, I haven't heard of that one. That sounds pretty fun.
I remember
Nice.
liking it in the cinema. So,
oh, good lad. I was wondering if it was going to be a sort of a remake of the Hong Kong film, The Eyes, as the Eye or The Eyes of Laura Mars.
it could have been, but because it's Spanish, I have no idea, and I never looked it up after that.
It's cool. It's cool. All right. Well, it sounds like you got a pretty good grounding here. I'd like to have Harry on because he's not a prolific horror watcher, and that's it. He sort of brings that sort of outsider perspective, basically. You've been a bit more eclectic, a bit more grounded in horror, but I think
I am
I'm
older
interested
and
to
more
see what you
cultured.
think.
So, as I say, the Zoomers are the most uncultured.
It's disgraceful. I mean,
It is.
there's only one thing I need to know to establish that. I mean, you've heard of Destiny's Child, right?
Well, yeah.
Can you imagine not knowing about the
How
fine?
did he not know? He would have heard them as a child. Doesn't even make sense. He's not that young.
I just think it's a little suspicious in this day and age not to have heard of them. I would personally be trying to rectify that as soon as possible.
I'm
But
a
anyway,
survivor. I'm a forgiver.
well, I'm a forgiver too. I will forgive that. But oh dear. I tell you, the writing's on the wall.
I'm
when
so
you revealed
old.
that.
I remember Britney Spears before she went nuts.
Good times. All right, so we should probably get into it. I'll see how this goes. I'm going to try handing over the screen for the presentation. This may work. This may not work. We're going to find out.
Are you giving me the control?
We'll do it live.
No, you just tell
Okay.
me next slide and I will do it. But what I'm going to do now, we are covering, as you will see, The House of the Devil, a 2009 film by Ty West for our film tonight. This is not looking like a typical 2009 film. It looks like a typical late 70s, early 80s film. It is a little bit of a, well, I think work of art, really. I think it's clearly a passion project. It's a tribute. But it opens with something rather interesting. It will have been the first thing you saw. Well, after all the studio
You mean
stuff,
it opens with some fake news?
It does. Shocking stuff.
Can I just say, though, you like this film, but I actually didn't like it.
Oh, no!
Sorry. I honestly, I tried.
I'm going to be interested in your perspective. That is fine. We do not have to agree. We do not have to hug box the film. It is absolutely grand. As usual, we're going to go full spoilers in this one. So if you've seen the film, if you don't care about being spoiled, you're absolutely fine. Otherwise, I will not be offended if you want to duck out. Hey, Fez, how you doing? But we got to be able to discuss the whole thing to really go into the details. But what it opens with is this screen. Now, I think it's already a little bit of tongue in cheek there, you know, especially in the middle section. But this is a bit of a confusing thing. Certainly for a lot of us in Britain, I think this is sounding a tad made up. It's sounding a tad weird, frankly. But it's based on a real thing, and I am going to attempt to get a presentation for you.
Now, is this really real? Or is it one of those based on a true story, like a lot of horror films have been doing recently, and it's clearly not real? Well, the Satanic Panic was real.
Can I hide this? I don't
know what's funny, though? They had the Satanic Panic and we had the video nasties.
We did. Well, there's something you'll notice. Okay, I'm going to be honest, folks. I can't get you just the slides. So we're going to have to do it like this, and I hope you'll be okay with it. So, Wholesome Waifu, are you happy to do the presentation? People are going to have a small spoiler.
Yes.
All right.
I will try not to go into too much official work mode, although I'll probably be on some kind of list at work, given that I did a lot of the research for this on my work computer.
Yeah, I'll just have to pause you very quickly here. Right Honourable Fez, I have discussed the vodkas that were recommended. I think I lean slightly in favour of the Conics Tale, but I am going to have to test both of them again just to be you know, rigorous and making sure I'm not making a hasty judgment on those vodkas. I was waylaid by vodka recommendations a few streams ago and simply had to test them. Anyway, that slight tangent aside, let's go with a presentation on the Satanic Panic.
Excellent. Okay, so next slide, please. So the Satanic Panic essentially began in the 80s, and I saw Mergut in the chat. You lived through it, so feel free to tell me when I get it horribly wrong. But essentially, it kind of started in 1980 or so with the publication of a book called Michelle Remembers. And this was the true, real, definitely verifiable account from a woman called Michelle Smith.
Nope, says 100% verified.
Later became Michelle Smith Pazda, which is the same surname as her therapist, because in true sort of therapeutic ethics, they got married and they were dating at the time he was treating her. She went in to see him for treatment to help her with depression and sort of other similar kind of mental health problems. He decided that hypnosis would really be a great tool to use, and lo and behold, midway through the hypnosis sessions, she remembered that she'd been horrifically abused in various sort of ritualistic ways, including being possessed by the devil. So the book was a bit of an odd sensation, and people seem to really get quite. It sort of really seemed to grip people's minds. this concept of like secretive satanic cults operating kind of in plain sight. I think the book is now widely discredited. It's kind of regarded as a work of slight fiction, but they tried to pass it off as real for quite a long time.
Now, why would they discredit a book whose main source of information is "it was revealed to me in a dream"?
Surely there was no suggestions during
Oh
hypnosis.
no, definitely not. And it was in no way kind of an attempt to just sensationalize and just capture something in the zeitgeist. No,
Experts
definitely.
say. Thank you, experts.
I think we can really trust a therapist who thinks it's appropriate to date
I think
someone.
Postel was onto something here.
So yeah, next slide is cute. There's a lot of sort of stuff that goes on during the Satanic Panic, various accounts, and you'll see kind of coming up in a story I'm going to look into in a little bit more detail in a second or two, that essentially a lot of stuff came out, all these sort of stories were revealed of these horrific cults operating through therapy sessions or through kind of intervention from psychotherapists who possibly didn't use the most appropriate methodology for interviewing potential victims of horrific crimes. So it kind of, a lot of it kind of comes out through sort of quite coercive questioning, or it's a very suggestive questioning, or hypnosis.
Check false.
Yeah, it's not entirely reliable, I would say. And so I think there's a sort of interesting role here in the kind of rising culture of sort of increasing numbers of people going to therapy, or the sort of rising role of the psychotherapist, I think is probably an interesting one to add in. But yeah, that brings me to the main kind of, I'm going to sort of tread on that crime guy's absent toes now, because we're going to get a bit true crimey here. If we can have the next slide, please.
Well, I'm informed that you can subscribe to that crime guy for all your true crime needs.
This is what I have been told.
McMartin preschool, 1979.
I think it was 83 actually.
Oh, 83.
But it's a pretty well-known case. It's sort of a hugely influential one, and kind of really sort of characterizes a lot of the sort of hysteria, the mass hysteria that kind of went on, particularly around the sort of fear of Satanism. And it was kick-started when a woman called Judy Johnson noticed that her son, who was a student at the preschool, had a very painful bowel movement. So she went to the police and informed the police that he had been sodomized. I hope that's a family-friendly word. By
yeah, we'll go with that.
We'll go with that. Something unpleasant had occurred to him by one of the teachers at the school, Ray Buckey, who just so happened to be her estranged husband. What a coincidence.
Why? Why would she lie?
Gosh.
Women don't lie. What are you on about?
I mean, another fact that was only later disclosed to the police was that she had been diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, which is, a horrific mental illness, but also not entirely irrelevant. And she was also had some substance abuse problems and later died of them. So I feel sorry for her, but also probably shouldn't have been taken as the kind of main witness. I think I've put some things on the next slide.
Yeah, I mean, this does sound like a sound evidence base, and I'm sure this is going to go ahead wonderfully.
Yes, what could possibly go wrong? So yes, she made the first report in 1983. In September 1983, the police sent a letter. Again, as I said earlier, the kind of really thorough sort of criminal methodology here and sort of questioning methodology, because the police sent a letter to all the parents who currently had children at the school, or who had previously thanks, yes, had previously had kids at the school, informing them of the allegations, of the detail of the allegations, and asking them to ask their children if any similar things had happened to them. So if you've got a 5-year-old and you ask it a leading question, it's probably going to tell you that thing happened. But then they sort of got several hundred children sort of came forward. Funnily enough, the parents sort of came forward and said, "Oh yes, my kid said this happened to them too, and yes, and little Flossie said it too." So the police all kind of went, "All right, let's get some psychotherapists involved. What could go wrong?"
Yeah, I mean, we should specify here in the comments. We're not laughing at the concept, but the concept is serious. It was taken very seriously, but given the evidence base, perhaps a little more skepticism could have been used. I mean, we'll carry on here.
Yes, I mean, there's definitely a case of it's important to believe, when people tell you horrific things. But when the children themselves were saying that they'd seen teachers flying around the room, they'd been up in a hot air balloon, and I think they'd witnessed teachers just casually in school doing horrific things to various animals, and then carrying on as though nothing had happened. I think it's a healthy dose of skepticism would have been useful.
Oh.
And there have been tapes. So during the trial, another forensic psychologist reviewed the tapes of many of these interviews that were done by psychotherapists who specialized in questioning abuse victims. And they said that it was kind of apparent that there was sort of lots of coercive questioning, lots of leading questions. They had an idea of what they thought had happened, and they were looking for evidence to prove it rather than asking the kids kind of more organically what had happened. And I think this is kind of one of those cases where I think it's almost one of those memes that people don't necessarily know where it came from, just the idea of kind of that sort of leading questioning of children. Next slide. I feel so official. As I said, there were some very bizarre allegations, including things like secret rituals happening in tunnels under the play school. And I saw in the comments someone saying, "Isn't this a place where they dug up the cellars in half the town?" Yeah, there were no tunnels under the building, never found either before or since. There's no evidence that they ever existed. But somehow everyone was convinced that these rituals the kids were describing taking place in these non-existent tunnels were definitely true.
Mm.
And then
fact check, absolutely true.
The worst Chuck Norris fact ever.
Yes, this is not one of the official Chuck Norris facts.
I just wanted to sort of chime in here, guys, because this may bring something to your mind if you I'm not going to judge you, but if you do watch non-horror films,
there are such films.
I can't verify that, obviously. But if you do watch non-horror films, this may remind you of a little-known Norwegian film by the name of Den Jakt, or The Hunt, starring Mads Mikkelsen, which is, well, it's pretty much this. It's Mads Mikkelsen is a teacher in a nursery school or a preschool or whatever the Norwegian equivalent is. And you know what? It might actually be a Danish film, and I've just annoyed half of Scandinavia, but we'll step over. And he is accused based on, well, quite scant coincidence. And then there's a similar sort of mass campaign to check with all the children. And it turns out then all of them come up with experiences. And there's a really good moment in a film. I won't cover the whole thing. You really should watch it. It's very good. Where he's reading these accounts where the children are specific about how they're abused, and even sort of the color of the sofa down in the basement where it happened. And he's like, "I don't have a basement." And it's just like this really key scene and being like, oh gosh, something is going wrong with how these testimonies are coming.
It sounds pretty similar. It sort of reminded me as well of The Crucible, the Arthur Miller play. And the people at the time did say that some elements of the kind of Satanic Panic more generally, and this particular case, did remind them of the sort of McCarthyist witch hunts. So it feels
those get a mixed reception on this channel.
I was going to say, it's sort of, some threats are more relevant than others. I love that I picked the sort of shiftiest looking picture of Chuck Norris for this illustration.
I think you mean epic.
I mean, I hasten to add, he had done nothing wrong. It was just that at one point in this entirely, a sort of sensible approach to questioning the kids, they showed the sort of some children in question a load of photos of people and asked them to pick out the adults who'd abused them, and one of the kids identified Chuck Norris.
Oh my God.
So possibly because they'd maybe seen some Chuck Norris films, I don't know. But yeah, so that case was particularly, it's a bit horrific, to be honest, because the guy in question who was at the center of many of the allegations, the ex-husband of the woman who started the whole thing, spent 5 years in jail.
Wow.
Before it even, I think, sort of over the course of it sort of getting to trial. It's one of the longest criminal trials in American history, if not the longest. And he was acquitted eventually of all crimes. And I think even sort of there's some, he shouldn't have been arrested in the first place, but it's kind of on such flimsy evidence for him to have spent 5 years in jail. And 5 years in jail for noncery is not an easy place to be. I should imagine.
Gosh, yeah.
Just to really make it dark. But yeah, so it was the sort of the fact that people were so keen to believe these sort of pretty ludicrous allegations is sort of what I think really characterizes the Satanic Panic aspect. So with the next slide, I've got a few suggestions of other things that were branded satanic. So Thundercats apparently is absolutely riddled with Hindu imagery, which is therefore Satanism.
I mean, it's clearly responsible for disgraceful levels of furries, but I don't know about Satanism.
It's
or even Hinduism.
Yeah, it's very odd. And then we've got, obviously, next slide, the transsexual, homosexual cult of the Smurfs.
Can I just say that I don't think people actually turn blue when they die?
No, I don't.
Or green.
How would you know, Mitch?
I've
How would
seen
you-
pictures.
Oh, a very convenient story.
Google exists. Oh wait, it didn't in the 80s.
Yeah, rumbled. So, yeah, I mean, if that Smurf thing is making no sense to you folks, I'm not going to play it again, but I opened with a clip, sort of you're going to get Smurf pilled if you rewatch the stream.
Is that just a euphemism for blue pilled?
Oh no, I didn't think this through.
Oof.
I mean, I do recommend watching. I think it's called Turmoil of the Toys. Watch bits of it. It's a documentary that was about the Satanic Panic. Well, it's not a documentary about it. It was a video that appeared during the midst of it, in which a couple of massive boomers attempt to explain why things like G.I. Joe dolls are satanic, and the Smurfs are reanimated zombie homosexual transsexuals.
Can I just posit a theory?
Absolutely.
So we all know that these boomers had a fun time in the 60s and maybe the early 70s, right? They were taking a hell of a lot of hallucinogens and smoking a lot of grass, shall we say, just having a whale of a time, right? Do you not think that maybe they were remembering their fever dreams and dreamscapes, shall we say, during those times? And some of them perhaps were a bit mentally scarred and thought they were actually real. And so we're projecting all of this stuff from their heads onto these kids and these people, potentially.
I don't know. I find it kind of hilarious that there's a lot of subversion happening at the time, and they picked all the wrong targets.
Yes.
You could say maybe it was counter propaganda. I don't know, but I do not get deep into that stuff on this channel.
Yeah. So other things branded satanic are obviously
Metal.
rock musicians, metal. Judas Priest obviously did nothing wrong. Black Sabbath were not in any way courting the image of themselves as Satan worshipping.
No, quite the
Ozzy
opposite, actually. Yeah.
Oh,
They
they'll
were
just
so
be
wholesome.
trolling. They'll be
Wholesome
trolling and having a
Christian
great
rock.
time with it.
They were very obviously Christians who were just interested in like some occult stuff when they were like in their 20s, but only as an interest and because it made good music. Although I will say for Judas Priest that they weren't actually, I don't think they were branded satanic, and they weren't took to court for that in the 90s for that. That was because somebody some two kids were listening to a song that they recorded as a cover, which is actually a very upbeat song, even though the rest of the album is very depressing. And then they killed themselves while listening to it. It had nothing to do with the music, but that's what they were put on trial for.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So what I'd seen was it was some of the parents were concerned that if you played some of Judas Priest songs backwards,
Yeah, that
they
was
had...
part of it. That was the justification for taking them to court, because they were
okay.
trying to say that, oh, look, they listened to it backwards and came up with there are these hidden messages. And basically in court, their lawyers and other experts proved, well, actually, if you're basically trying to find, you're listening to stuff that you want to hear, basically. I forgot what the actual term for it is. And they were let off because it's quite obvious that it's just a load of noise. But they so want to believe that there's a hidden message to hearing it.
Yeah, absolutely. What's really interesting, I'm just looking in the chat, I'm seeing a lot of you Americans, you're remembering this stuff. Like for us Brits, this is a sort of odd I guess episode in a distant history for us. So it's quite amazing that I'm seeing people remember it.
Survivors of the Satanic Panic.
It was
Rock
more suicides blamed on Ozzy and JP. Like famously, Ozzy Osbourne released a song called "Suicide Solution," which is nothing actually about suicide. It's actually about alcoholism.
Yeah,
I guess the actual meaning of the song is you could kill yourself, but you should actually get through it. I think, if you remember correctly.
Nice. And you'll also remember if you re-listen to the Marshall Mathers LP, like at least half the songs are obsessed with Eminem being blamed for things, being blamed for being a bad influence. There's that line, and they blamed it on Marilyn and the heroin. Where are the parents at? I'm going to stop there because otherwise I rap on stream and no one enjoys that.
And she just prefers to subject me to that in private.
You know what's the funniest thing about the trial that Judas Priest had to go through? They told Rob Halford, who's one of the greatest singers of all time, to sing the song that allegedly the teenagers killed themselves listening to. We don't actually know. Could have been any of the songs on that album. So it's called Better You, Better Than... So he sings it, and obviously he has to breathe while he's singing, so he does a sound at one point. And they ask him about that, like, what's that sound? He says, it's just my technique is I'm breathing.
Oh, wow.
A likely story.
Everyone knows that Satanists don't need oxygen.
We all know that singers just have no lungs. They can just do it.
Gosh. So what you've also got the obvious D&D here, subject of an infamous Jack Chick tract.
Careful now.
There was someone where I used to live in London would just deposit chick tracts all over the buses. So it was quite fun. I would try and collect a different set each time. But yeah, so Dungeons and Dragons, and then next slide, Pampers. So I think it was 1985, the CEO of Procter and Gamble, or the president of Procter and Gamble, had to hold a press conference announcing that the company's logo, which featured at the time a man surrounded by 13 stars, was not in fact a sign that Procter and Gamble were actually a Satanist company spreading the laws of Satan through their sale of babies' nappies, but it was actually just a reference to the 13 original colonies that made up the beginnings of America. So, yeah, I think that's probably low on your list of things you expect as a sort of PR manager for a company. But yeah, very bizarre.
Me.
Oh, sorry, no, next slide. Sorry, not that. We don't mention.
It's going to be a reckoning.
No. Papa
Yeah,
John's
sorry,
did nothing wrong.
He did nothing wrong.
Yeah, it's absolutely not. It's just interesting that people were very kind of concerned about. I think I suppose in some ways it's kind of like it's one of those touch points, isn't it? That people are worried about sort of undue influences happening to their kids and what the elites might be doing behind closed doors that we can't know about. But that definitely has nothing to do with pizza. I've been told.
I mean, it's quite interesting. Like, you'll get onto where it comes from. I think this is like valid instincts being directed at the wrong places. That you can understand in a time of fairly massive social upheaval, a desire to look out for influences and be protective. But it clearly found a very unhealthy outlet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
I mean, I do go into that in the next slide. I feel so like I need a clicker.
Oh, rock on, rock on. You do need a clicker, but I'm afraid we are quite Luddite here.
So yeah, I'm now going to have to squint at the quote that I've put up on screen. So this is from a book called Season of the Witch, How the Occult Saved Rock and Roll by Peter Bebergle. I apologise for that name.
Do you want me to read it?
Yeah, go ahead. You've got a lovely voice.
Well, it's just I can see the text. Okay, so from Peter Bebergle's book, Season of the Witch, How the Occult Saved Rock and Roll. A lot of it was having a spiritual vacuum created by the fact that the 1960s promise of this cosmic spiritual consciousness didn't really pan out. Then you had this 1970s uptick of paranormal investigations, ESP, and interest in UFOs really climaxing with Close Encounters of the Third Kind. But the aliens never actually landed, you know? Sure, that's what he wants you to believe.
We've all seen Roswell.
I think it led to a cynicism that led to kind of a cultural paranoia. There is no meaning. There was already an uptick in fundamentalist Christianity. The Reagan right had begun to dominate politics, and it was the beginning of a cultural war. That's when the Parents Music Resource Center started to put labels on album covers to warn against profanity or even references to the occult. It was a perfectly ripe stew for the Satanic Panic. In a way, believing that Satan is running the world is still offering a kind of order to things in a world that can feel very disorderly. Total cope.
I would add, though, that Tipper Gore and Al Gore were not right-wing. They were Democrats.
I think
Tipper Gore was one of the big proponents of all this nonsense.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a certain amount of bias and cope from the author, as we do occasionally. Unlike your entirely neutral hosts.
But the thing is, it did come from both parties. So I guess it's not wrong to say that, you know, certain people in the Republican Party, the fundamentalist Christian wing, were involved in this. They obviously were, but it wasn't just them.
Yeah, and I think it's also, I think to me the part of that I wanted to kind of bring in is perhaps that sense of the kind of the vacuum of wanting a sense that there was some sort of control or some sort of order happening. I think the Satanic Panic is kind of misdirected.
I mean, he's kind of spot on with the first paragraph, though, because that's what Black Sabbath's early music is about, that vacuum, that emptiness, the Vietnam War, all the stuff that's going on. You know, they all thought that peace and love, man, and sexual liberation would free us all, man. And, well, it didn't, did it? And that's what Black Sabbath's songs was all about. Yeah. Funny enough, it all kind of coalesced into their own kind of album, and that was one song, Children of the Grave, which is about the death of the hippies, basically. Yeah.
You're a good guest for this stream.
I know a lot of stuff. What can I say?
Isn't Ozzy Osbourne from Birmingham, of all places?
They're all from Aston, Aston in Birmingham, yeah.
Oh dear. What has Birmingham done?
Epic.
Created heavy metal. Black Sabbath, Judas Priest are from the Midlands. Not Iron Maiden. No, Saxons from Yorkshire. Pretty much all the best heavy metal comes from the Midlands.
There's bugger all else to do here.
Nice. All right. Next slide.
Yep. So this is my kind of general theory that there's kind of, I feel like it's not exactly my theory. I think it's a fairly common one. I think each generation has a bit of a kind of cultural bugbear. So the 50s and 60s were the totally unfounded and unjustifiable fear of communism, which is totally safe and wonderful and has never actually been properly tried.
You heard it here, folks. Rudi Deutschke was saying it for a laugh. He was drunk. There was no long march through any institutions. Carry on.
So yes, there was an unjustifiable and ridiculous fear of communism, hence the McCarthy witch hunts. 80s, it was kind of that sort of, the downturn from the 60s and the 70s, and that kind of cultural cynicism and stuff led to the Satanic Panic. In the 1990s, I think that kind of moved forward into the sort of fear of the violence in video games. Actually, in the longer version of the clip that was played at the start, which is from this documentary Turmoil of the Toys, which is the sort of expose of how children are being corrupted. He does actually talk about how there's sort of an increasing violence in the toys being marketed to children, from G.I. Joe to sort of various different sort of children's shows. And apparently, this man had spoken to Russian sources who said that they were more concerned about the increasing violence marketed towards children than they were about the US's nuclear weapons, which I totally believe. I definitely think that happened.
I'd like to know how we knew these commies.
I know, suspicious. But yeah, so it's that kind of fear, you know, this sort of violence, and sort of violent music and violent video games are kind of destroying our children, particularly our young men. And 2000s onwards, I think it's been patriarchy and toxic masculinity.
Partly, I would say. I mean, in the 2000s, there was still the whole video games thing for a while. But actually, I've noticed recently that it seems to be a new hysteria almost every 1 or 2 years. Like, there's just way more than just that.
It's moving quite quickly.
It's getting crazier out there, isn't it?
I mean, at the moment, it's unvaccinated people.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm kind of torn on this because I've been on streams. I say I obviously believe that culture has a big impact on people, and culture does shape people. I don't know how far I go down the Doom did Columbine line, but I'm not going to say culture does nothing. So I kind of do think there's a fair amount of sense in being worried about what's out there.
No.
Again, this could be my own bias
it's not
because I see what's in my own age at the moment.
The art reflects what's going on right now. Although Doom does not reflect anything, it's literally a guy who loves his rabbit shooting demons. That's literally the plot of Doom.
All right, we have said previously we're going to do a whole Doom did Columbine stream, and you can come on for that and tell me I'm wrong. I actually haven't made my mind up on this, but
I mean, if you honestly think that Doom made those guys do it, then I don't know what to tell you.
No. My position is that culture does influence people. That it's a feedback loop. I don't know how much influence goes either way. Obviously, culture comes from the people, but culture then influences people in all sorts of ways.
But then, all you have to do is look at the mental health of those men or boys, well, young men. And see that they were probably, if they didn't get help, if the community didn't actually try to help these people, they wouldn't have shot all those kids.
Oh, sure.
And that was the point that Marilyn Manson was saying, because he was also blamed, and he didn't do it either.
No, exactly.
And like Eminem says, he hears about the story and says they must have broken in through my back window, stole 2 loads of machine guns and both of my trench coats.
Yeah. you need to rap. You need to give us a rap.
No.
Don't tempt her.
Yeah, I get cringe enough with my musical bits.
I reckon your flow is amazing.
No, I'm not falling for that trick again.
No comment.
Anyway.
So yeah, it's that thing of how, I suppose I think we're always interested in the culture and what impact it has on people. And I think there's, as you say, it's a feedback loop. It's possibly more, it's what we are saying to ourselves almost. It's the sort of conversation we culturally have with ourselves. But yeah, I think the Satanic Panic sort of fits neatly into that thread. It's just the sort of latest hysteria. And as you say, we're kind of cycling ever faster.
Yeah, there may be a hysteria about it, but nevertheless, like, we're not saying if you hear about stories of abuse, don't ignore them. And I think that's actually something quite positive that wrong slide.
Oh, damn it, sorry, I don't know what I put in here. But yeah, I mean,
I was so close to those Susan Bucks. Gosh darn it. Oh dear.
Yeah, I think the Satanic Panic is a very interesting one because it also does kind of come at a time when people were apparently beginning to take allegations of that sort of abuse a bit more seriously than they had done previously. So it possibly kind of just hit. It was just a sort of combination of things all coming together. And I can hear the cat.
Yes, we kind of got the whole household here, haven't we? We've got you on stream, me, and Gatsby has come in
the same
to
room?
shriek.
No, I'm in a different room. I've closed the door, which is mortally offensive to Gatsby, so we'll probably hear him quite a lot.
Yeah, for people who...
Is that the same cat that Rose was looking after?
Yeah. Well, no, just... I'll give you the deep lore another time. But for people who've joined late, Wholesome Waifu is not a random name. That's my actual wife. and we've tried to limit the echo, but
Aw.
yes.
Reader,
Say
I
hi.
married her.
Chat.
Shall we
Say
go
hi.
to the next slide?
Say hi, waifu. That's it. That's we
But
wanted
I've got
to...
such a perfect thing for it, you know.
What, this slide?
Yes, go on.
Oh no. Oh
Bring it up.
no.
Big fucking stroking nonce.
Family-friendly stream.
Oh,
I forgot. I forgot he swore in that one. Sorry.
I'll forgive it.
Sorry, I forgot he swore. I'm so used to playing it that I'm desensitized.
Gatsby's not a Maine Coon. He's a British Shorthair. We rescued him from Battersea about 6 years ago.
I always feel guilty saying it like when you say like, hey, we rescued him from Battersea. Like they weren't tormenting him there. They loved him. He is a rescue cat who is in the care of Battersea.
They did literally a couple of people. They wanted us to wait before we left, so people who were coming on shift could say goodbye to him because they loved
I've
him
been
that
to
much.
Battersea. I've been there.
You've been there? Oh.
Yeah, Paul Joseph Watson's flat. No, I'm not even joking.
Oh, doxing.
We have got some deep lore to go over, okay? After the
Hey, I didn't
stream.
say exactly where he lived.
So where's the postcode again?
Before we
know you.
No, we're not gonna jeopardize my chance at Susan Bucks. So moving on to the sort of film analysis portion of the stream, because the topic is never 25 minutes long. It never happens. I never manage it.
I did my best.
No, we did fine. We like it. It's all fun. So yeah, I said this is how we open House of the Devil.
Fake news.
If you didn't catch it at the start, this is a 2009 movie that is made to look as if it is from the late 70s. So if you remember, I said in the extra credit watching that you could watch a couple of other movies from that era. You could watch When a Stranger Calls from 1979 or Black Christmas from 1974. Those will all help you get the feel for the look and the pace of the movie, because the director Ty West has gone out of his way to make this movie look authentic, and there are very few touches in the movie where he kind of breaks the illusion. There's just a couple. So I'd say like that one at the start where he has in the in that text just a slight tongue-in-cheek thing of the other 30% believe it was a government cover-up. It's like, okay, it's a little bit of a wink at the audience, right? And there's one later which is a bit more of a post-scream thing that we'll pick up on when we get to it. But yeah, it's a pretty simple story. I usually have... Oh, hey, see you, Charlie Chieftain. Thanks for dropping by, man.
Doing a Grandpa Simpson.
I was going to say that was quick. Is it something you said?
We always get Charlie for about half an hour. It's always welcome. Yeah, so I usually get Harrian to do the summary.
I'll do it if you want.
I'm at loss. Do you want to
as another
give
fellow Mancunian, I will do it.
Sweet.
Right.
Give us the 2 to 3 paragraph summary of the plot
Okay.
of House of the Devil.
Young lady rents a new house and somehow finds a really nice landlady who is willing to give her a chance and says, okay, well, you may not have to deposit right now, but I will let you off and you can pay the first draft of it or whatever next week on Monday. Unfortunately, this young lady does not have the money and so is desperate for a job. She has about $84. And so she finds a job as a babysitter. And then all hell breaks loose. Or does it?
Nice.
Is that pretty decent? Yeah.
That is very good. I mean, it's one of the things I've enjoyed as like an ongoing joke is that Harrian never summarizes it in 2 paragraphs. But you just got to admire that attention to detail that he brings. Yeah,
I could have gone full on attention to detail, but because I didn't like the film, as some people may know, I decided to make it short and sweet.
Yeah. That is absolutely cool.
Although
Now,
what I did like was the look of the film. I was pleasantly surprised that it wasn't this oversaturated nonsense that you get from a lot of films from around that time, and even now they're still doing that. Although there were films back in the day that were oversaturated, it wasn't in that kind of horrible HD grimy sense. Usually they're vibrant, which made it much better, in my opinion. This is more of the it is a low budget film. It's more the low budget fare that you'd get in like a grindhouse.
Yeah, I mean, you are talking the days when your film stock was one of your biggest investments.
Yeah.
And I think there's a certain amount of just people had to say, sod it, we'll work with the take we've got. It's a very slightly different era, but not too far off if you think back to some of the original Doctor Who, where they clearly sort of flub a take and they just keep going because, you know, you kind of have to.
Magnetic tape was scarce. That's why a lot of the early episodes were deleted. Although I still think to this day that the BBC could have bought more, considering who pays for the BBC. Makes you wonder what they were wasting the money on.
Really makes you think. I mean, just the fact that they just taped over so much, just, oh my goodness. The one time they decide to make efficiency savings and it's taping over Doctor Who, honestly, the apps... Can I have an S in the chat to spit on the BBC, please, folks? It's well
deserved. Defund, physically remove the BBC.
Do you see my tweet today about, like, we are way past defund the BBC, folks.
Well,
I want BBC reparations.
I think after all that was exposed with Mr. Savile and all those other people, that it should have been destroyed.
Oh, I mean, yeah. What else do you need, to be honest?
But my free TV with no adverts.
What else are people gonna do? Who will do the TV if the government doesn't?
Really send your macadamia to academia.
I mean, there's ITV, there's Channel 4, which is partly funded by the state. There's Channel 5. Oh wait, there's just all the Sky and Virgin Media.
Yeah. Bugs
It's almost like Netflix exists, and we can all go there and watch
and YouTube and Amazon
and of course they are flogging all their stuff to Netflix. And I could go on a big BBC rant. I'm restraining myself.
Let's restrain ourselves and stick to the film. Honestly,
the economics of the BBC is a fascinating topic, but we'll go into that another time. But yeah, I'm glad you like the look of it. I mean, I suppose it's a very simple plot. I'll even suggest that there's a fair few bits where it is basically killing time.
That's my biggest issue with it.
Interesting. Well, do you want to give us just what didn't you like about it? And
basically, maybe I wasn't in the right. I did think to myself when I was watching this, and afterwards, was I in the wrong frame of mind? Because it was quite short notice that I had to watch the film, and I did watch the film in 2 bits. So I watched the first 33 minutes on the bus to work, and then I watched the rest of it here at home. But I found that for the like next 40 odd minutes, basically nothing happens. She's walking around a lot. There's a few plot points that happen. So there's the job board that she notices. There's the landlady at the very beginning. That's fine. But most of it's nothing. And she's listening to music, walking around the campus. She goes to see a friend. She says the name Heather, but then the person she talks to who lives in the same place is not called Heather, if I remember correctly, which is weird. That might have been a nod to maybe the flubbing of the scenes. I don't know. And then eventually you get this. We can't go too into the plot yet, but then the twist happens. Then another thing happens, but then again nothing for ages until the last 20 minutes, and then shit hits the fan, and then it ends. And I thought there was no character development. You don't really see it interact much with people, except for the landlady and a friend. And I don't see what people saw in it, to be honest. Nothing much happens.
It did feel like it took ages to build the tension. It didn't really build the tension.
It didn't build tension. There was no suspense. It's not like, say, Halloween or even Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where there's just this. If you're not feeling like you're being stalked, you feel there's just oppressive dread on you. Like there's nothing there really for most of the. And even then, when they're doing all these scenes, They're not making what they should have done, in my opinion, was just say this is the 80s. Wasn't the 80s cool? Because this was actually an era when the 80s was back in fashion. Because there were women in real life who looked exactly like her. Think Lady Hawk, for example, the singer. Like they should have just gone balls to the wall. This is the 80s, kind of like what Tarantino did in I think
Death Proof.
Hollywood, not Death Proof.
Oh, Once Upon a Time in
Once
Hollywood.
Upon a Time in Hollywood, yeah.
Oh,
Although I
love
did think
that.
of Death Proof when I watched this and Planet Terror. Like it should have been just like a love letter, but it's kind of just nothing happens. It's empty.
Interesting.
It's an empty film, in my opinion.
I can see where you're coming from. I guess, I mean, this is all interpretation, of course, but I found that I actually like that it really tries to be authentic, whereas something like Stranger Things to me seems like it's much more of a big memeified version. It's more of a meme tribute.
Yeah, it's
and
a meme tribute.
It doesn't feel, it's just like the most exaggerated elements.
Did this come out at the same time as Super 8? Do you remember Super 8? That was another.
I didn't actually see Super 8.
I saw that. I remember it being decent. You know, I enjoyed it. Oh, this was 2011, but it's still it's the turn of the decade. So there was a brief period in the 2000s and early 2010s where there was an 80s retro movement, and then it's come back around again, which is weird. I never thought that the 80s could have several retro movements in like 19 years.
I think it's just retro caught up to the 90s and was like, nope.
I mean, just fashion is still has been aping the 90s. You know, like, you know, there's like the crop tops and, you know, showing your belly buttons back in fashion.
Oh, don't encourage them, Mitch. Come on, man.
I can't. They're already doing it.
Oh, no. Disavow. Oh, look who's come crawling back.
It's the bag himself.
Hey, that crime guy. How you doing, man?
Just got home. Who are these poses? Filling up mine and Ariane's spots. Silence, Southner.
Which one am I? Am I replacement?
James
crime guy?
Silver in the chat. If you thought Super 8 was a tad this film was even more boring.
No, James loves House of the Devil.
I can't.
Right.
This nearly made me fall asleep.
Okay, for any point where you disagree, I think I'm just going to say it's because you watched it on a bus.
Hey, I watched the first half an hour on the bus.
So no, I think that is genuinely important though, because I do stress perhaps a tiny bit uncoolly, guys, when you watch the horror movie of the week, try and get the optimum conditions. Try and be in a dark room, be uninterrupted. Try and put the phone away. And like, obviously you couldn't do that. You've been awesome by coming in, stepping in for a slightly, you know, we wanted to have you on, but it is a blessing we got you on as soon as we did.
Thing is though, I wasn't actually distracted on the bus because it was in the morning. And I had my full attention to it. And to be fair, when I watched Fright Night, which I loved, and Army of Darkness, which I loved, it wasn't the most optimum conditions, but I'm used to watching horror films like that anyway. I thoroughly enjoyed them. And I was scared a lot by Fright Night a few times. Not Army of Darkness. Evil Dead 2 I was scared of a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Film.
I actually watched that, then Army of Darkness.
I find that interesting. Like maybe, maybe you have adapted it. The other thing that you said was you stopped on the first bit about half an hour. So did you stop 30? Now, did you? I don't know exactly. Did you manage to stop just before Megan, her friend, gets capped?
Yes, don't worry. I knew exactly where the spot was, so I just resumed from when she walks out the door. Yeah.
Oh right. So you resume, and then her mate gets capped pretty much instantly.
Yeah, and I did think it was a bit run. Oh, are we getting ahead of ourselves, or is it?
Well, we'll go through it. I'm just trying to. Yeah. I'm interested in your experience of the film because I was sort of wondering, like, if Mitch has watched it, he's got to like the big action point, which is about 30 minutes in.
If you can call it an action
and
point.
then, to be honest, it is a massive wait until anything happens, and it is just lots of, I would say, subtle tension building. But I'm also going to be very honest. I do think they were trying to get over the 90-minute mark.
That's exactly what I felt as well. If it was 60 minutes, it would be fine, actually.
Yeah,
I think.
And you can do very short movies. It's absolutely fine. You don't have to make it to 90 minutes. 80, absolutely fine. If you've got 80 minutes of story, do it. I think we don't mind that. It may be a sort of, and I don't think it's even something that cinemas would particularly insist on anymore. I think they'd be
Some of the
quite happy.
greatest films ever made are 70 to 80 minutes and they're considered feature films. I mean, a feature film is 60 minutes and up. So there's no justification for trying to get to 1 hour and 30 as the benchmark. It's not actually. The minimum is 60.
Yeah. I could see it back in the day, kind of. Like, I've told this slightly weird story before, but back in the sacred days of Blockbuster, because I was on a strict rental ration, when I was trying to narrow down my choices of the 2 movies I could take, I'd literally look at which was the longest. That would be my deciding thing, is like, oh,
If they just had a bit more world building, a bit more character interaction, because basically the characters don't have any personalities, in my opinion. I mean, she's lovely to look at. I thought she was very cute.
She is very cute.
Agreed.
You like the freckles?
I don't remember seeing freckles, funnily enough.
Oh, good freckles.
I just love the hair.
Yeah.
And the eyes. I don't think she looks at college age. It depends on the angle. So, like, at one point they go, "Oh, you're very young looking." I thought, "No, I'm not. I'm not fooled."
Oh, interesting. Okay, well, it's interesting on the character arc. Yeah, I'll agree that there's not really a character arc, but I do think there is quite an interesting character conversation in there, and we'll get in there. Like, there's a major thing that I think of with this movie, that's just like the biggest influence on it, and I can't do this in a smooth way. There's got to be a better way of doing this. Gosh darn it, where is... I found it, guys. So smooth.
I didn't notice a thing. Oh,
It
yes.
says... Now, you know exactly what I mean here, wholesome wife. Would you like to tell people what this book is, quickly?
Brilliant is what it is, and everyone should read it. It's essentially, it's kind of like a self-help guide to sort of protecting yourself, being a bit more streetwise. And Gavin de Becker, I think, is a sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Not security guard, but essentially runs a kind of security type agency protecting people.
It's a security consultancy. Like, he works with lots of people in sort of counseling movement. He also does sort of advice on, say, higher profile clients. If they are being stalked, he advises on that. If they're getting harassment, so that's a lot of his background.
But yeah, his big thing is about listening to your instincts and trusting your instincts. And if something doesn't feel right, then that's probably because you've picked up on something that you haven't kind of consciously registered, that's causing you to feel concern or fear. And that's the thing that you should sort of listen to, because listening to it will help protect you. He got into a lot of trouble because he essentially pointed out that, you know, people, when they choose to keep staying in a situation that they know they're at risk in, then on some level they're kind of choosing to put themselves at risk. And that's obviously got him into a lot of trouble with people who don't like to take personal responsibility.
Spicy.
Sorry, I'll bring it back down to Korma.
No, that's cool. So, I mean, what I see is like the main dynamic in this film, maybe in place of the character arc, you might say, is that there is just like this extended playing with the concept of those, how can I say? Yeah, getting those fear signals, getting the danger signs and interacting with those. I think that's like the main action in this film. Basically, there's lots of those moments of you getting these warning signs and what you do with them. So like, this is the first one. It's just like a little weird. She rings, she can't get through, and then you stay on this shot, and I thought it's just a lovely shot. Like, you're already forewarned because she's made the call and she's walked on. By sticking here, you kind of know that the phone call is going to come back in, right? and you just see her turn around when she's walking away, already thinking like, "Oh, that's kind of weird." And she goes back and answers. She goes
She's
back
trying to
and
be
checks.
polite.
Yeah, she's finding it a little weird, and then she gets stood up by the guy, and she's like, "Oh, I don't know about it. I don't know about it. Not so good."
In a way, I suppose you could say, you could look at it that words. You could look at it that he and the family are kind of trying to see. They're trying to select the person to be their babysitter for the night as the person who is most likely to be kind of compliant and override her own instincts and anxieties, and therefore someone who's more likely to be able to kind of dupe into staying put.
The cynical person in me says that it's just to ramp up the viewing time.
Well, there is that too, yeah.
I was confused about this, so I really like this movie, but some of it doesn't always make, not all of it makes a big bit of sense to me. So there's after this where she agrees to meet, and then she gets stood up by him, and I can say like, oh, okay, right, this is to say, you've got 2 warning signs now. This is a little bit weird. He's just sort of stood you up, and then he calls you back. What are you doing? You're getting messed around a bit. But I'm not sure I had a reason for why he would have stood her up. Like I can try and guesstimate that he did talk about talking to another woman, didn't he? And then she bailed, so possibly he stood her up because of that. What do you reckon?
Or it's just to make her seem make them seem weird and untrustworthy, and sort of unreliable.
Yeah. You get a nice little detail where you see her get this new, the film starts with her getting the new apartment with a nice little cameo from an 80s star. I think it's Dee Wallace, who, yes, I mean, from
What was she in?
horror fans will know The Howling, but I think everyone else is probably thinking of E.T.
E.T.
And of course...
Oh, that was a Satanist film.
Yeah, of course it was.
Yes, because it's it contains occult themes of resurrection and rising from the dead and stuff.
I knew it. Oh, and of course our obligatory Scream reference is that she is referenced in Scream obliquely. When someone comes to Randy in the video store and asks him, what's that werewolf movie with E.T.'s mum in it? He is referring to Dee Wallace as E.T.'s mum. I have to get the Scream reference in. Got to get him in early because I forget otherwise. So yeah, we see her get this apartment, and then you later see her in her dorm room with like the worst roommate. How messed up are American dorms?
About as messed up as British ones, if memory serves.
But
you're not
you're
as rigidly
sharing a bedroom, man. Oh dear.
Well, I mean, do it. And I think there's some British dorms that are like that, but most of them they had their own rooms, but they're actually quite tiny rooms. I don't know if that's the norm in America or not, but it might be a bigger place, and they're just showing the bedroom side of it. To be fair,
it's what I tend to see in American movies. Maybe it's an ease of screenwriting thing that if people have to sleep in the same room, it's that much easier to have them interact. I guess I don't know, but I'm thinking of like this Buffy, the butterfly effect. It's always a shared room. Pitch Perfect as well. Yeah, random tangent there. Anyway, you see she's got this terrible roommate, and that's why she wants to move out. She's very set on that, and I can see that. She gets the notification she's got a call, so she goes through with that. I think this might be after
she's... Is the roommate the blonde girl, or is it a different girl?
It's a different girl.
Is it a different girl?
State. Yeah.
Because when they go to her place, it looks exactly the same. Well, I don't know. Does she go into her dorm or not? I think she does, doesn't she? Yeah. And then at one point, when she gets the call from the man, she says, "Oh, it's on your desk." So did they live next to each other?
So that's a different girl in her dorm.
Oh,
they're both blonde.
It wasn't quite clear. Oh, really? Was it?
Yeah,
Oh,
I
they
think
looked
it's just because
exactly
they're
the same.
both blonde that's the confusion.
Yeah.
But yeah, the friend is Megan, played by Greta Gerwig. I think is one of those sort of handy early castings. And I really like their dynamic because effectively Greta is, sorry, I should say the character name, Megan here, is kind of your post-Scream character. Like, she's almost genre aware to an extent. I mean, you see it just before she gets capped, but all the way through, she's basically saying straight up to is her name Jocelyn? No, it's Samantha. The actress's name is Jocelyn. I've said this before, guys. When I watch a film, I'm literally ignoring characters' names and I'm just labeling them as protagonist.
I did actually forget her name at one point.
It's like watching
because she's
Tenet.
not a character.
Oh, savage.
Which is not. None of them are.
She's got good taste in hats, though.
I think
She's a very cute girl.
I think she doesn't have a character arc, but she does have character, and I will try and make the case. I may have to persuade you, Mitch. I don't know if I'll do well.
I'm very stubborn.
I'm going to win you over. I'll have you over a barrel the way Harry and... Well, I'll go into it at post-Scream.
I'm not Harry, Ann. just like when Cisco punched Q, and he goes, "I'm not Picard."
Nice. I tried to rewatch. I fell out of Deep Space Nine. I tried to do a rewatch. I could not get through season 1.
I'm not really a big fan of Deep Space Nine, mainly because I've not really watched a lot of it, but I've seen that episode.
Okay.
And I do like Cisco. I like pretty much all the captains. Even Archer, he was a good character, even though Enterprise wasn't that good.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is I really like the interaction between Megan and Samantha, because Megan is basically telling her, "Yeah, don't be an idiot. This is sketchy as hell," and Samantha's sort of like, "Oh, I don't know. It'll be legit. And you got this sinister as hell shot when she first meets Mr. Ullman, who did people recognize? Did people get excited?
I recognized his name, yeah.
Yeah. For people, I don't know this. If you know, you will know him. He is played by Tom Noonan, a man of very memorable stature. Not quite tall enough to be the guy who is in the Alien prosthetics.
He's pretty tall, though.
Yeah, he's not like Kevin Peter Hall or Doug Jones size, but he's
Boris Karloff. Yeah,
no, but he's a really, really tall guy. So you will probably know him best from Last Action Hero, where he plays the sort of serial killer in the fictional Jack Slater films. And, of course, in Michael Mann's Manhunter, where he plays the villain, the Tooth Fairy. Epic film, if you haven't seen it, folks. Manhunter is 80s schlock, and it's glorious.
Well, I know what we're watching this weekend.
Yeah, I think we might have to.
Good film.
Yeah.
I've never seen it.
But do you prefer that, or do you prefer Silence of the Lambs?
Oh, come on.
Well, Silence of the Lambs... What, do you mean comparing Manhunter or Red Dragon?
I've never actually seen Red Dragon, so I can't comment.
It's not bad. Murgoot knows his horror. Good lad. I appreciate a phantasm reference on this channel. Yeah. Oh, good lad. No, I like
Boy
Silence of the Lambs so much more. But
yeah,
they are such different films, to be honest. And Brian Cox, I think, actually is a pretty darn good Hannibal Lecter. You're so darn used to Anthony Hopkins doing it that you forget there is a decent version of him out there.
But Anthony is the version.
Oh, well, yeah.
I still forget that there is an actor called Brian Cox. Every time I hear his name, I assume it's the sort of Mancunian scientist.
He's not Mancunian.
I beg your pardon.
He's from Oldham, I think, if memory serves. Let me just make sure I get the exact town he's from, because he's not actually from Manchester. Yeah, Oldham. Oldham is like a satellite town outside of Manchester.
So he's excommunicated, right?
He was never Mancunian to begin with.
You're writing him off. Okay, I'll give you that.
To be fair, I quite enjoy seeing him as Hannibal Lecter.
Do you like the stars, Clarice? They shine very bright. Do you know there's about 1 billion stars just in the sky alone? There.
Well, if the BBC job stopped coming, I don't know. I could see him going for it.
He's got his job at University of Manchester.
So, what did you think of the dynamic between Megan and Samantha, where Megan is just like, bail, get out of there?
It's typical horror fare, isn't it? There's always that character that's the doubt.
Yeah,
he plays the doubting one, and the character, the other one who's like, "Nah, it'll be fine." You know, to quote Critical Drinker, "Nah, it'll be fine."
You're absolutely right, and I'd say actually it's for a bit of horror theory. People, if you have seen Cabin in the Woods, the rather troubled production that it is, it makes a really good point that basically in a horror film, because there is a morality element to a good horror story, the characters always have to be warned of the danger. Well, almost always, they have to be warned of the danger. They have to be given a sign that they are transgressing, taking a risk, and they then have to have the opportunity to bail the heck out of there. Now they have to refuse it because we've got a darn movie to watch. They can't just be off in 20 minutes. No. They have to be fools and they have to learn for their mistake. This is how horror stories work. But you got to give them the chance at least. It's a formality.
I think it just felt to me like she had so many opportunities to politely leave. And I don't know, it just felt like more infuriating than most horror films where there's a stronger motivation to stay. Like I know she wanted to get the money she needed to put her deposit down after the weekend, but it just sort of felt like she was getting so many warning signals. She was clearly uncomfortable. Her friend was being a very sensible voice, and it was like it more than normally in horror films. I was like, why is she staying? It didn't
he was
feel
paying her far too much money to be a babysitter.
Well,
yeah.
I'd say that's part of the gift of Thea thing. Is it has to be sort of giving you the warning, and it has to be that sign making you say, "Oh no, that's not good." Like, this is sort of the crux of it. Is in this scene where he's separated her from her friend. Ultimately, it should be a concern that he's willing to give her $400. That she actually, and she does take
sign
it
enough to leave.
No, just like before we develop this point, I do think it's kind of important because the film somewhat hinges on it. Like I'd say that one of the reasons I like it is that the dialogue between Samantha and Megan, that tension about like, listen to your gut, we can, we got to get out of here, let's boo-boo. That is, that's a tension builder. It's raising the signs, it's giving you the warning, it's setting you up. It's like, come on, this is creepy as hell.
I honestly didn't feel creeped out by it. I don't think the director managed to convey the tension at all.
Okay.
Using dialogue,
yeah.
Because at the same time that this film came out was Inglourious Bastards with that scene in the pub, and that was literally Quentin Tarantino. He said it himself, like, I wanted to create suspense with dialogue, and he did. I didn't see that in this film. I think he failed. If that was even his intention, I don't even know.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's all of this, if you don't have the buy-in, stuff doesn't work for you as well.
But I think that's just because it's so generic as well, because in every horror film, there's that doubting Thomas, isn't there?
Yeah, to an extent. I'll give you that. Interesting. Okay. And on the matter of the money, I mean, waifu, there you have raised the fact that it's not life or death, is it? Basically, she could bail out. And in fact, Megan has said, my dad will give you the money.
And she's
Yeah.
also literally been told that another girl was offered the job and bailed, and that so she's
that's-
been shown that it's an option.
Yeah,
it's
that's part of the gift of fear thing, you know. But I can totally see a criticism. I would say it's kind of grounded. I can see her seeing an opportunity and thinking, actually, okay, it's a bit weird, but you know, darn it, I can get my 400 here. I can rinse the guy. It's a few hours. She talks herself into it, but I can also see your point of view that it's like, girl, this is not life or death. You can get the money another way.
there wouldn't
And
be a film if she said no.
Well, that's kind of the thing, is they need to make the bad decision, you know.
I just feel like there's a better way of going about it without all these obvious get outs, you know?
She's got a bit of a sunk cost fallacy in there by a certain point. Yeah,
It just
I don't
didn't feel
know.
compelling enough, I think.
I will
I
say
see.
though, like him and his wife, proper nonce vibes, you know.
Oh, totally. I mean, I just find this really interesting because I mean, in a way, it is generic because it is designed to look like a 70s horror film, and a lot of effort's gone into it. But I just found Jocelyn, it's darn it, her name is Samantha. I found Samantha really relatable, like possibly to the point that maybe I can see where you're saying she doesn't have a character. She's a bit boring.
I will say that I did the twist in this scene. I did find relatable because something like this actually happened to me.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I used to work in the pub during the early days of the new channel. This is I consider this my new channel, even though it's a couple of years old now, believe it or not. So I didn't like this job. I was unable to move up because they were trying to keep me down there at the lowest possible rung. So I managed to get an interview for a host job at another one down the road. Right. I got to the interview. I was up for it. Then they spring this surprise on me. Actually, we don't want you as the host because we want a woman only. Then why did they invite a man over? And all through the interview, she was talking about, it was a female interviewer. She was going on about waiting. And I had to stop her and say, well, you're talking about waiting, not hosting. And that's when she sprung the surprise on me. And she said, do you want to maybe be a waiter? Because we want a girl. I mean, there was no actual rhyme or reason why they had to have a girl. Because in the place I worked, the events manager was a man and he did occasional hosting. And then whenever you see restaurants, there's not really like it's not unheard of or unusual to see male hosts. I mean, you see it in films a lot, especially in the high place ones. There's loads of male hosts.
of course.
So it didn't make sense, and I
I
walked out.
When you say host, do you mean like maitre d'?
No, just a host. Like say hi. This is your table, or
Oh yeah.
or
Okay.
whatever, you know, like, oh, do you want to take a reservation if they do it in person or on the phone? It was like,
Oh, I get the one you mean. Oh, front of house, right?
Yeah, front of house. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah.
So I did feel for her
preferable
here
one.
because I thought, oh yeah, this has happened to me, but that's the only time I really kind of felt sorry for her.
Okay. And this is a pivotal scene, as you've highlighted. The twist for people who haven't done the homework is that at this point, Mr. Ullman reveals that there's actually no baby to babysit. It's to look after his elderly mother. I don't know why I added elderly there. Look at the guy, obviously.
No, she's a teenage mum.
Oh, absolute state. No chance. It's not Manchester.
How dare you?
So, and she immediately gets up, and then he gets up, and I like this cute interaction where it's like he realizes he scared her, and he backs down, and it's like she gets a powerful position, and it's like at this moment she overplays her hand a bit, and this is well, I feel like this is her mistake. Among many that have been made, she could have walked out at any point, but this is the one where she seals the deal. Like she's just in after that. And as Mergate's pointed out, that's.
I mean, like his reason for lying is so bad. Like, we tried to find a carer, but it just wasn't working. Like bollocks! Come on, man. Really? There's loads of people who are trained professionals who could do that.
That one didn't stand out to me as much, but I'd had enough warning signs. But if that's an additional one, then it goes into the whole gift of the ear thing of, for goodness sake, notice the signs. And
Queen
this is a-
Boudica, this is an 80s thing, not a 90s thing.
what have we got? Oh yeah, after this we get her friend leaves.
Yeah.
And we get this like final scene of like, for goodness sake, just
let's just skedaddle. Let's
damn
get out
it.
of here.
Wrong guy.
Wrong man.
Wrong
Not
guy.
yet. His time is not here yet.
He's on his way.
Someone said earlier that he's a Haley Joel Osment lookalike, which is...
Oh,
I wouldn't call her
true.
greedy. She's desperate. She's not greedy.
Yeah, it's more desperation, I think, and a bit of pride as well. A little bit of pride. It feels harsh to go for here because she's taken an opportunity and she's making the most of it. But yeah, she's not listening to the warning signs. It's pretty harsh for her to be, punished for these transgressions because they're quite minor. To be honest, it's quite a harsh film in that way. But she's got her final chance here that Megan's basically saying she's so mad at her. I really like it. I really like this scene. This had lost you at this point, hadn't it, Mitch?
Yeah. Well, the film, I was already kind of, you're wasting my time here with the time wasting. And then we got to this point. I thought, okay, something's going to happen. Surely the plot's going to kick in gear. Stuff's going to happen. And yeah, some stuff happened.
Yeah.
She got capped in that alone is an issue in the film, which we can address near the end.
Oh, go ahead. I mean, do you
want me to go ahead? All right. So this guy, obvious nonce. Look at him. He's. Although at first I did think they could be stringing a twist on me here, and he could actually be a good guy, because there is a film where the rednecks are actually the good guys, and everyone's getting killed because they think they're bad. So
the
they're
excellent Tucker and Dale.
Yeah.
Oh, good lad.
Yeah. So I thought, well, he could actually be all right. But then again, he did come out of nowhere, didn't he? But then it could have been like, oh, I'm a graveyard caretaker is what I do. And then he asks, are you the babysitter? She says, no, I'm not. So like, she's meant to be the doubter, but then almost aware of the film, but then she loses that awareness. And then he caps her in the head, blows her face wide apart.
Yeah.
With that gun. And then
I bloody loved it.
And then at the end, it was decent gore. But then at the end, when Samantha blows her head off, well, she doesn't blow her head off. The same gun, same ammunition. She's alive and well, still got a face. What? That thing blew her brains out and her face.
Gosh darn.
That doesn't make any sense. Plot armor.
Ooh. I mean, I'll actually agree with you. She does get a healthy dose of plot armor in this.
Don't get me wrong, she was logical in what she did.
Yeah.
But plot armor, please. She should have died.
Oh.
But then again, you could just say it was the magic.
I would protest that plot armor is it's fine. It's okay for not everyone to die from the gunshot, but actually I will completely I'll completely give it to you that the damage is so disproportionately big that it's actually a plot hole. I will say that's a good observation.
That's bad writing.
I just want to pick that up. Cabin in the Woods is very much something I want to cover, but I kind of, how can I say, I'm low-key doing this as like a syllabus for Harrian. I cannot show him Cabin in the Woods. I bet he's seen it already.
He needs to see Evil Dead. He needs to see Evil Dead.
Exactly. First. He's got to see Evil Dead. He's got to see Hellraiser. He really should see The Strangers as well. I think he might have seen that actually. But I need to run him through.
You know what you need to do?
A few more before I get him onto Cabin in the Woods.
You need to show him some old films, old horror films from like the 20s and the 30s. Creeps.
Freaks is on the list.
You need to watch The Cat and the Canary. Is it Cat and Canary?
Yeah.
The 1920s one. The first horror comedy.
Yeah, we're going back to the 1920s soon. I might as well say, my plan at the moment is I want to try and get a kind of consistency so it's not jumping all over the place. So I want to do sort of runs of connected films.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just tell you guys now, the next one coming up, I'm doing a run of Korean horrors. And I want to do a run of Jack the Ripper based horrors.
You've got to get the
Yes.
Lodger in there.
That's it. Yeah.
Yay,
So
I've
we're
seen
going
that.
back to the 1929.
Early Hitchcock, guys.
Yes.
Really? Oh, that's
Yeah.
exciting.
I think it's one of the earliest of his that survived. So
He
we've got
actually, it's not a spoiler because it's nearly 100 years old.
Mm.
But originally, Ivan Novello was going to be the bad guy, but the studio said no, so he had to change the story, unfortunately.
Classic. So yeah, I'm trying to work in like little batches. So I think maybe a run of 3 films, and then we'll do like an audience choice, so I don't get too preachy. But yeah, we're going to work up to Cabin in the Woods. But it's kind of like I can't do Scream until I've walked everyone through enough of the 80s slashers. So that's
I'm
going to
getting
take
so
me a
many
while.
flashbacks to when we started dating.
I know, right?
That horror syllabus. I mean, flashbacks makes it sound like trauma, but it's my own
So
fault.
I've tried to be quite discreet in this, so I do it because I find, yeah, it's so difficult to go like in and out of eras without just like going deep into them.
Although with the silent films, we have to make sure we find literally, you do have to find the perfect copy because a lot of them will either be poor quality, or they'll have the wrong soundtrack, or they'll be at the wrong speed.
Oh god, yeah. Prime is really bad for this. Was it The Lady Vanishes? We had to do a proper
God,
check.
yeah.
Like, is this broken? I said, okay, I'm liking this. Sick chat.
I've
You
seen
seem to like this
Reanimator
plan.
recently, Murgoot. I was impressed up until near the end, where it really began to test my suspension of disbelief. The gore was good though.
The gore is amazing, and Reanimator also is, I think, like 86 minutes. It's so quick.
Yeah, although it began to kind of play with its concept a bit too freely. Like towards the end with the bad guy, I thought, no way, they've not even established that's possible.
No, physics breaks, and the way the goo works is, you know what? It's just a good fun. It's a gay romp, frankly. You know, you just
it's not another one of those things where you think
No.
it's gay.
no. It's a laugh riot.
It's a laugh,
you know?
right?
Yes.
Not everything she likes is a homosexual smurf.
Look, I do. I sometimes get a little too much fun by exposing Harry into a lot of gay content. Yes, I'm only human.
I'm with him on Friday night though.
It's
No,
so gay,
it's
man.
gay.
Come on.
It's really not.
Levels of homosexuality
I
in
will-
Fright Night are off the
I'm-
charts.
I'm willing to concede that the vampire might be bi, but everybody else is not.
It's not about that. It's not about gay vampires. It's about him being uncomfortable with his own sort of like internalized homophobia.
See, for me, it's not that. He's uncomfortable being a man. That's what it is. And he learns to be comfortable as a man and to grow up and compete with other men for the women and in other things in life.
Okay, folks, you know, we shan't derail the stream too
I've actually
much.
been in a situation where I had to defend my dame from a woman, believe it or not.
Defend your... Oh, really? Was there a...
Yeah, I had to fend off a bi lady that I later befriended.
You can't trust those bisexuals.
No, I won.
Gentlemen, stay vigilant.
Admittedly, she wasn't actually my girlfriend, but you know, it's like, hey, I won. I won, fair and square.
Yeah, I will simply leave it to chat. Look on my channel for the video Fright Night Nothing But Gay Subtext Edition. It is 6 minutes of all the gay subtext condensed. I do have a longer talky version called Freud Night, but frankly, no one cares about the theory and they just like the gay montage.
So should we talk about this nonce then?
Yeah, this guy is... He does look so much like Haley Joel Osment.
Oh god,
It's brilliant, isn't it? The minute someone
anyway-
in chat pointed that out, I was like, oh, I cannot. This film has changed forever.
So anyway, as we already mentioned, this lady, she's driving off in a huff and a puff, fancies a smoke, and then for some reason, rather than just pulling to the side of the road, she pulls into a graveyard. Okay,
Sensible.
Mm.
and then she's fumbling for she can't get a cigarette lighter in the car to work. 80s technology, guys. Even though that's not changed, it's terrible, right? Then all of a sudden, a Zippo appears out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And then she's like, "Where did you come from?" He's like, "Hey, I just saw you needed a smoke." Well, how did he know that? And then they're kind of chatting. She thinks she's kind of being rude to him, to be fair, but she is in a bad mood.
I mean,
And
can I pause you on there? Because this
Yeah,
is
go
the
on.
bit that I was going to say was like the really obvious post-scream meta commentary.
Yeah.
It's like she is talking in a slightly unnatural way because she's like, we know this scenario, you're on your own, or sorry, the character's on their own in the dark. Suddenly a randomer comes up out of nowhere. There's a jump scare. And it's a good jump scare, I think. You know,
Nah, I
think
saw it coming.
Ah, I'm gonna get you, Mitch. I'm gonna have
I
to
saw
show you
all the
something.
jump scares coming. One of them got me, but it's one of those jump scares that was undeserved.
I'm gonna have to show you some intense stuff. I think. And
À l'intérieur.
Alante, yeah, could be. Anyway,
You speaking
so
French?
It's a French film, but my God, sorry to derail again, but
yeah.
literally spent the first 10 minutes just begging to have the film turned off and then was too paralyzed to turn it off.
Oh.
Really good film.
So yeah, she does that thing where she recognizes a scenario in a quite meta way. She's just like, "Whoa, dude, what the hell? Where did you even come from?" And that is like directly asking about the logic of this whole scenario.
Yeah.
Where did you even come from? Were you just hanging around here?
In a graveyard in the middle of the night.
And he shrugs it off, and then she returns to it, and then he shrugs it off again, and it's kind of a nice way of saying like, yeah, that doesn't make sense. Don't worry about it too much, guys.
Which
It's
I think is a
almost
cop out. Like, oh yeah, we couldn't make this make sense. Let's just go meta.
yeah, I think that's a fair criticism. It's my memory
But the
might
thing
be
is,
hazy.
she has a
Oh, go
chance to
ahead.
escape. She could have just lit the cigarette, given him his thing, say, "Oh, you know what? Thanks. Anyway, I've got to go home." She would have driven off, and then everything. Actually, the plot still could have gone on ahead without her ever appearing again because they could have just cut the. But I think they did eventually cut the phone line, but you don't see it.
There's a thing of he doesn't really need to do that. He should know who she
because horror
is.
film.
Yeah, I guess maybe his thing, if I were to try and defend it, is he knows he needs to pretend. Okay, this is actually going to break down here. So this is a plot hole.
Yes.
Yes, they do
Mitch
try
is
and
winning.
No, it's cool, man. It's cool. So I guess I would try and say he's hanging out because he needs to come back and be the pizza guy in a bit. But in which case, like, surely he should be hanging around the pizza place. I don't know. So
Satanists in pizza parlors? Never.
And he clearly doesn't have an old brick mobile phone, does he?
No, so it's a bit if you can excuse him being in the graveyard waiting for his time, then you can excuse him thinking like, oh, wait, has she bailed?
I can't though.
Yeah, that's the thing is you can't justify him being in the graveyard.
There's no reason to kill her. Really?
Possible a witness thing that, but I don't think ultimately they care about that.
The only reason is to add tension for the viewer, and it would add tension if they didn't feel like the film didn't then kind of almost immediately, well, it doesn't forget about it, but it just doesn't really do anything with it.
It moves it to the side. I mean, I would say structurally, it's a realization of, look, I think it's 36 or 37 minutes into the film.
And nothing has happened.
Except
for one twist.
We have slowly built up tension, methodically, patiently, rewarding the patient viewer.
Very gently.
But frankly, we know that our viewers are gore hounds and they want to see, yes, Fez, they want to see the red sauce. We need to catch up with the ketchup. It is time for some gore. And I think that's why we get the scene, and it is not
To be fair, you don't really see
it's
much.
not all that logical. I think it's nice and brutal though. Like
It's
just
brutal, but that's because you don't see much. They cut away very quickly. You just see the spray. You don't actually see her face literally explode from the front. You see it from the back.
I could have seen more. Now I am a gore hound, so I'll always be happy with
I'm
a
a
bit
gore
more,
hound,
but
yeah. But I think gore works best when it's not completely in your face. Sometimes a good cut can make it better. So like that scene did work as a gore effect because it wasn't in your face, seeing a face literally explode right in front of your eyes. No, you literally see him shoot her, and then you see the explosion, and she's crumpled to the floor. I think that works. I like it when it's a little bit more subtle, but still violent and gory. But that's just me.
I mean, the sort of nonsense behind why he's in the graveyard aside.
Nonsense, did you say?
Well, the beard's a little too full, you know.
Yeah.
I think if you're really diddling, you're gonna have a patchier beard.
Although
than
every
that.
man looked like that. Most men did look like that in the 80s and 70s. So
yeah, it's an authentic look, I guess. Yeah, so we'll leave the plot hole aside. We've acknowledged it. We're like, yeah, that is a it's a bit of a cheeky one. But we got our gore. It's an annoyance, and yes, they do throw the sort of yeah. It is cope. All right, it's look. Films will have errors in the stories. This is one of them. This is an error. This is they wanted to get us some gore. That's what they're after. It's 36 minutes in. We need some claret, and that's what they're doing.
The thing is, though, like the old man, he isn't actually worried about her being there, really. Like he says, yeah, I can only pay you. He's not actually worried that the friend's there.
Yeah, he wants to get rid of her, though. I mean, you could really ask, like, why not get them both pizza and then they both pass out? So you can do that. I think we're acknowledging that this is just a move to get us some gore.
So,
and it's quite transparent.
Moving on.
Yeah, we'll move on. It just takes me a minute to change the blooming screen. It's such a pain. There's got to be a better way to do this. It's about 40 minutes of this, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a montage of her just walking around a house.
I mean, great choice of music.
Yeah, I forgot what band it was, though. It sounds like a British one.
It's a band called The Fix, and
he has been playing it incessantly for the past week.
Yeah, folks, I'll be honest with you. I had a sly mission to get that song, The Fix's One Thing Leads to Another, in your heads. That was my whole deal. Is I wanted that song to be an earworm for you. Did it work? Did you have it
in my head? No.
Did you not? Oh,
not really. No, I didn't dislike it. It's just not really in my head for whatever reason. I can remember it, but it's not an earworm for me.
Oh, this really worked for me.
I like it.
I've been a little bit obsessed with the song. It's something I find quite adorable. Where have I got?
Her dancing is really cute, to be fair.
Yeah,
apparently the 911 operator is Lena Dunham.
Well,
no.
there is quite a feminist reading of the film, but I would say it's close. No, really, like the idea of a lot of the stuff about the gift of fear and women being taught to ignore the big danger signs. It goes okay with a.
It's the opposite though in life. Women are essentially brought up in the climate of fear to fear every single man that they walk past.
Well, yes, you can disagree with the theory, but you can say this is a coherent reading.
I mean, you're brought up to be
in the theory,
okay. But you're not built up. You're not brought up to kind of actually then act on your instincts. I think is probably fair to say.
I would say this is one of those films where it does have a strong feminist reading, but it doesn't get in the way. Although you actually didn't like the film, so
And that's I didn't see this feminist reading at all. It was just
Okay.
to me there was not really much meaning behind it at all.
it's a subtext anyway. I
If it even has one.
It's like, oh, James, I cannot play the song. I cannot play the song.
The algorithm will get us.
That there really is a good chance that the stream could get yanked. They're a bit cruel about it, but this would be a divisive bit because something like her dancing around the flat is the kind of thing that I would say is iconic. It's a character builder. It's something that doesn't need to be there, but it adds a lot of joy to it. I'm trying to think what an equivalent was.
There's a fair few films where they do all this stuff.
Oh, it's annoying me because it was like the last horror film that we reviewed, and they had something on like this. It was just something you could have cut, but it was otherwise kind of iconic, and it's absolutely slipping my mind. I suppose you could say something like the any of the dance scenes tend to be like that. We'll skip it because I simply cannot remember, and people are just posting earworms. Yes, these are very good. I have also been obsessed with Video Killed the Radio Star. I was
Which is funny because Video killed the film star, not the radio star. Or the TV star, maybe. Because cinema attendance for a while declined in the 80s. Radio, not so much.
Interesting. I don't know anything about attendance. I was dealing with in the last bit I did on the BBFC about how.
Although he means music videos, I reckon. But that was a 70s film before song way before MTV. So I don't know.
Interesting. Okay, so there's this. So I love this dance scene. I think it's fun. It's joyful. It shows you a little bit about how playful she is. I think if you were not into the film, you would probably say this is a time waster.
It's a montage. It is. That's exactly what it is.
So cute.
You're all coping, like it's just 10 minutes for us to get to the inevitable mistake that she makes. I knew she was going to do something while she was dancing, whether that would be breaking over a vase, jumping on the settee in her shoes, which she was doing. She was going to do something.
That was a bit of a disgrace. And I'll give a plot hole here. We're told repeatedly she's a germaphobe. Why is she jumping on the sofa?
Yeah, never once does she actually show a fear of germs. But she does say that she's not, to be fair.
She's like, I think it's like she's teased as being a germaphobe, and she's like really just like, she's got a super messy roommate that basically anyone would have a problem with. But yeah, it's not super convincing.
Yeah, but she does say that she isn't. So that's their get out of jail free card. Yeah. We'll give them that.
They do a lot in this period, and we are talking about literally about 40 to 50 minutes of film of
nothing.
Guys, would you say blue balling can we say blue balling on a family stream?
Yeah, I think. But I didn't feel blue balled. I just felt.
Do you feel edged? So
no.
Okay.
I was completely turned off by this film.
They have her doing things, and they get a little bit of a hint of, something's a bit weird, and she walks away, and she tries to distract herself, and then she goes back, and you get an early shot of a scene of the Pryor family massacred in quite a gross way.
Was it actually the family, or was it just sacrifices? I couldn't quite tell.
It's the old family who were sacrificed because their car is still here.
Oh, because I would have thought that. I actually thought that it was the Satanists. I thought that it was their house and that was their son, and there was something going to happen. There's going to be a reveal that the young man is actually their son to some extent, but it wasn't. I guess I completely misread it.
That's okay.
Again, it doesn't really tell you all these things because there's nothing really there.
Oh, it's subtle. It's subtle. It's in the photos. It's when she's looking in the photos and she finds there's a family in the house that had the same car that's still outside.
Oh right, I thought that was the man's. I thought that was their car.
It is now. I also wanted to point out this shot, which I thought was really nice. She's going around the house, and you get a kind of Amityville horror look here from the outside, and then you zoom in. And I really like this detail where you've got these kind of long legs coming off the light, if you see what I mean here. Can I indicate them in some way? I don't think I
just
can.
tried to point at the screen with my own
Doesn't
hand.
work. Okay, so it kind of looks like the light structure with those long spindly wires coming off it. It looks to me like a giant insect, and it's kind of poised above her in a sort of making her look vulnerable, like she's about to be pounced on. I really like the design of that shot. Are you going to call that a complete reach?
I just thought, yeah, that's a massive reach. She's just turning the light on.
No, I can see it. I can see it.
Chat, is this a massive reach, or is that set up to look like a giant bug about to pounce
I've literally
on her?
destroyed this film, and you're just trying to find ways to love it more.
The resistance only makes me love it more. What can I say? I like it.
You thought you could convince me that this film was good. You were wrong.
I genuinely like it. I'm surprised, but you hit this thing. Whereas if someone hasn't caught in the film, then you can't get them back, or it's very hard to, and that's absolutely fine. Sometimes a film just does not connect with you, and everything that I am just gleefully letting go and not calling out as a massive lazy plot hole or a textbook use of post-Scream meta-ironic proxies to cover bad writing. Random examples there.
I've been watching far too much EFAP to not see that kind of stuff nowadays.
They start to build up, and this is the thing where we could say you could take 25 minutes from the film easily, and because it does do a slightly awkward thing of build up, little hint of a scare, back away, and repeat and repeat and repeat. And they do some things with her getting close to seeing something nasty. They drop this quite interesting scare. I thought that was just vile.
I didn't think it was scary. Like, they put this big scary music. I thought, no, it's just gross. It's not really scary.
I guess in the sense like she didn't expect to see it, and it's just nasty.
Yeah, it is quite nasty. Yeah, it's the old lady. It's the lady's hair. Now, I couldn't quite tell if it was her wig or her actual hair, because her actual hair's grey.
Well, that's one of the weirder things in here. I didn't actually understand it. You get this quite memorable image here of all this really gross hair in the bathtub. I'm sure that's probably upsetting someone in the stream. But sorry if you're finding that gross when you're watching it. I'm going to leave it up for a minute.
Well, I wasn't grossed out. I mean,
just anyone
I've
watching
shaved
on
my
the
hair
recap or
before.
something.
I'm used to it.
Yeah. You get a moment later. So if you're not, we kind of glossed over the role of Mrs. Ullman, haven't we?
It's because she doesn't really play much of a role.
She's there to sort of, once Sam has signed her fate away and agreed to do it, she comes in and gets really noncy on her in a really creepy scene where she's like, oh, I bet all the boys love you. It's really creepy. Yeah.
So creepy.
You later get you get her later sort of revealing that her hair is a wig, and she's quite balding with some grey hair. So it does make you wonder what's actually going on here. I'm not sure. Again, it might be something that doesn't make a huge amount of sense if you think about it too long.
I just feel like they were struggling to get from point A to point B to point C, and they just thought, hair in a bath, that's scary.
Yeah, as much as I love the design of it. I think it's really well acted. I think Jocelyn Donahue is very captivating as the actress. I loved little sequences, but there isn't
She was
actually
captivating.
all
She
that.
didn't captivate me.
Oh, is it the freckles? Do you not like the freckles?
I remember I didn't see the freckles. It might have been my
Oh.
copy online that I watched. That
I
maybe
bet
I don't remember seeing any freckles, to be honest.
they'd have won you over. It's all about the freckles.
Oh, I find her attractive, but I don't think her performance was captivating.
Alas, different reactions to it. But hey, this is the fun of having the discussion.
It's not like Steve McQueen in like Papillon, where there's many scenes where he's not saying anything; he's just acting, and you're watching everything. What's he gonna do? Like, wow! Like there's actors like Ryan Gosling. He's another one who can act without saying a word. Mel Gibson could do that, but she can't do that.
I find Ryan Gosling is just too sort of self-consciously doing that. Like I feel like he's a bit too aware.
He can do it though.
It feels a bit too self-conscious.
Maybe, but again, he's capable.
So ultimately, we're saying like even I like it. I think Mitch, you didn't. Waifu, how did you feel about the massive padding that is happening?
Oh, it was so padded, so padded. I think if it felt like it was building up consistent tension, I wouldn't have minded. It wouldn't have felt like padding, but it just felt kind of.
Well, wait, we're not at that bit yet.
Oh yeah, well, this happens pretty much immediately after. I'll be honest, I don't have screen caps between.
No, she goes to different rooms, and then she goes to the toilet, and then she hears a load of noises. And she gets a knife out. Then she doesn't actually see the family. I don't think she even opens the door. She
doesn't. She doesn't. She never does.
She gets the pizza. Remember, she gets the pizza.
I have sort of jumped ahead. Okay, I've skipped the pizza art.
So anyway, after all the padding, she breaks a vase, and then she clears it up, and then all this stuff happens where they're trying to build tension, and then just when she's about to go upstairs to see something, the doorbell rings, and she has to go down, and it's the pizza, and they keep trying to build it up as this, ooh, what's this reveal gonna be? And they've already shown somebody walking around, and you obviously know. It was so predictable. I knew exactly who it was. You know who it's going to be. In fact, they shouldn't even have done that. Just show him walking. It's the nonce, the young nonce, who has the pizza.
Did you like the shot of the RV outside of the home in a kind of like, why the heck is that there sort of way?
It didn't really hit me, to be honest.
Okay. Yes, Ken Allard, the pizza arc. That's what I thought.
To be honest, it was kind of blandly shot.
I thought it was authentic. There is a sort of maybe unintended comedy when the pizza arrives, and she's just like, you just get this shot mirroring when she meets Mr. Ullman, where you don't see the nonce guy's head, and she just takes pizza, throws the money, and says, "Keep the change."
I didn't mind that. That's a logical thing to do. Just close the door. But then they tried to pretend like, "Ooh, who do you think it is?" Like, we know who it is.
Oh, I didn't expect such a harsh reaction to it, Mitch. I failed you.
No, you didn't. You didn't fail me with the other films I watched.
All right, cool.
I'm very glad I watched Fright Night 1985. I haven't watched the remake because I don't tend to watch. The Thing is a remake though, and that's brilliant.
It's true. There are very few numbers. Fright Night, the remake. It's like you'd have a good time with it, but it is.
The Fly's a remake.
It is indeed. You just be too
the
annoyed.
Originals are good. Apparently.
Yeah, I think we are due a Vincent Price exploration. I don't know how to walk people in because he's quite distinctive. But we have already done Witchfinder General that had Vincent Price.
I still need to see that.
Oh, mate!
You know what? I was trying to show you guys a song from Cathedral, which is like a doom metal band. They have a song exactly about that film.
Really?
It's called John. I think it's called John. Is it John Hopkins, Witchfinder General? Is it?
Matthew Hopkins.
It's called Hopkins Witchfinder General. I'm not going to play it, obviously, but I will link it to you guys. And it has one of the most cheesiest music videos you'll ever see. It might not be your cup of tea.
I'll give it a try.
It has clips from the films, and it's very occultish.
Nice.
Tail Feature knows this song, by the way. He knows this one, if he's in the chat, which I doubt.
Nah, we might get him on one day. So, yeah, we have a bit of building. Ultimately, it is the pizza was drugged. There is a subtle reference, I'm told, according to the trivia, that the pizza guy asking if she wants extra anchovies is a subtle code that he was offering to sell her a bit of weed.
I don't know about that.
This is not something that culturally translated to this poor British viewer. James De Silva, yes, there is a 2011 Fright Night remake. We covered it in the last episode of Double Feature Horror Show.
Don't watch it. Save yourself.
To be fair, I need to see those films, Murgy.
We could maybe get away with him not seeing Puppet Master, but he does need to see The Gate and he does need to see Basket Case.
I'm going to have to add them now. I have so many films I need to watch.
We haven't even got him going through Hellraiser yet, and we need to do that.
I've never seen a bit of that, I've never seen it all the way through.
Ooh. Well worth it. Well worth it. I absolutely love it. So we talked about there's in all the build-up, ultimately it is the pizza that does it. She is investigating the noise upstairs. You get, I think, a kind of decent, if maybe now quite standard, spooky shot of the of clearly someone is on the other side of a door and their feet are blocking out the light. I thought it was quite nice.
I've got a good spooky drop for you guys.
A spooky drop on the old soundboard.
Spooky. Boo.
See, I don't ever use that for films. I use that for philosophy. If you guys know your Stirner, you'll get the reference.
We do not know our Stirner. We are uncultured here. How
He has
dare
a
you
thing.
imply?
He calls all things that are like abstract concepts, spooks or phantasms, as it's actually translated from the German. And I found that by accident. This meme, which is basically just the stinky, that one. It's just a ghost version of that, but it seemed to fit with me and some of my other mates who have read Stirner, that we just use that to make fun.
Unexpected German philosophy.
Yeah.
Nice. So, ultimately, all this tension that they've built, but then unfortunately walked back on, is then pulled. The drugs take effect. She gets into the hallway. She stumbles and she collapses and wakes up like this.
Ooh.
Haven't we all had mornings like that?
It's a lot. It's a lot. I think it looks pretty darn great.
I think it was so generic looking.
Sense of, well, what do you mean? It's like all the icons are there. You got to do it, right?
There's so many films that have done this, though.
I feel it's like the problem is like similar to when you do an exorcism movie. There are steps you have to walk through, or it doesn't feel like you've done the job. And there were nice touches in this. Like I thought the ritual of actually drawing a pentagram on her and then feeding her the blood and putting the blood-filled skull over her, putting it over the sort of groin area, I thought was a good emphasis of vulnerability as well. But the film, even for me who really likes the film, I feel this is where it sort of struggles a bit.
It completely jumps the shark in more ways than one. So like, she's there, she's completely strapped. She's not a very strong-looking woman. I mean, she's a stick, basically. Let's be honest, guys. She's beautiful. I do think she's lovely, but she's not very strong. And then they all walk in the procession. Unfortunately, they're not chanting like "Omen, Satanus," the usual stuff. So it's not entirely cliche. Well, they were missing a few. And then out of nowhere comes this monster-looking thing. Is that meant to be the grandmother? I don't know what it is. Is it?
It's
not
pretty messed up. No, it's just
Have you got a picture of it?
I don't. Do you want me to get one?
Yeah.
All right.
And then it gets. So basically, what happens is they kind of surround. Not that, well, they can't surround. There's only 4 of them. So they go around and they're just waiting and see what happens. They're all that excited. Oh yeah, we forgot that the film happens in one day and there's an eclipse happening. And this is apparently the most perfect place for this eclipse to happen. We almost forgot about that. And these people are using the eclipse to get the dark energy from the Dark Lord himself, apparently. So anyway, this thing gets this, it's a stupid, this goat's head. And then cuts themselves, not on the palm of the hand, or maybe on the wrist, on the outside where your bone is. No. They get a knife and they cut themselves downwards as opposed to sideways, which would kill you. But this thing seems perfectly fine and unharmed by this suicidal thing. And then pours the blood into the goat's head. And then, I don't know what happens. She then draws some symbols on her, where her womb is, and then on her head. And then she pours it down her throat, this blood, and it's horrible and icky. And then, but the sheer horribleness of the blood makes her convulse. And then somehow, miraculously, this is where the plot armor comes in. She pulls off her restraints and is free. But for some reason, everybody just freezes. They hesitate. They hesitate a fair few times during this. And then
they are a bit sort of stormtroopers in Star Wars.
Yeah, they completely lose the plot.
It is plot
armor.
armor.
But then she has a little bit of a derpy moment. That the programming doesn't work. The AI fails. There's a bug. I don't know where she got the knife from. I actually didn't see her grab the knife. I don't know where that came from. I don't know if she grabbed it from the thing or it was just there.
It was by the side, but it is very easily missed.
That is that the same knife that she used to cut herself? The thing, whatever it is.
Maybe.
Or is that
It's
the kitchen
unclear.
knife? What's that doing?
It
there?
is. It's the same one.
Because then she also stabs. So first off, she stabs the old man. I thought she kicked him in the nuts, personally. It was so dark you couldn't see anything. At least for me, I couldn't see anything. Then she runs to a corner and derps out. Then the young nonce turns up, and then she thumbs him in the eye, which somehow it makes it explode, which is unlikely to happen.
They're quite viscous. There is your messed up face, Grandma.
I don't know what that is, and she never appears again, except in a few flashbacks for whatever reason. So anyway, she's running around the place, and then the nonce is after her, the young one, and he has his gun. And then finally they meet, although she does just have a little scuffle with him. And then he shoots her.
Pure plot armor.
He shoots her point blank, somehow misses her head or her chest. He could have shot her in the heart. He had perfect aim. No, in the shoulder somehow.
I suppose his eye had just exploded.
Yeah.
True, but
even
maybe
so.
he didn't want her dead. Maybe he still thought they could
pistol
rescue
whip
the
her.
ritual.
Pistol whip her then. But then she gets a lucky shot and stabs him. Well, she slices his throat open, and then the old woman appears, and then she's all sad about him dying, and then the other girl is beginning to be sick. Why is she being sick? Is it the drinking of the blood, or is it something else? So anyway, now the old woman is chasing her, but then she finds her, and then does the evil thing where she's telling her the evil plan and is completely distracted and ends up trying to talk to Satan when she's got somebody who's armed and dangerous right next to her. Even though she's been shot in the arm, the film forgets about that. And then she just
turns around. Yeah. It is.
Dies.
It's plot armor. I think the other thing you would not just plot armor. I think plot armor is her surviving the gunshots and getting the knife.
No, that's not hard to survive the shot in the shoulder, but
and then later the head. Yeah, but the I'd say the relevant trope would be the idiot ball, if you remember that one.
Well, see, Mergu, it doesn't look like she gouges it out. It happens so quick. It looks like she just pokes him and it explodes.
It's a very quick effect, certainly. I thought it looked okay, though, in terms of eye gouging.
See, I don't think he would have been able to have moved properly after that. I mean, not, he would have been completely disorientated, surely. But then he just looks like I've just got one eye now.
He's
like Big Boss or something, like what?
Yeah, I mean, as much as I like the film,
It did
and
explode.
I appreciate
It did explode. It did. Literally, it did.
it's quite messy. There's a lot of gore, but I think
So
the
anyway-
relevant trope here is that they're all the devil worshippers basically start carrying the idiot ball.
Yeah.
So at this point, they all act entirely stupidly. You don't know their motivations. They're
and I forgot.
effectively.
He hesitates to shoot her.
Well, maybe.
So
maybe
like
he
the whole
doesn't
idea
know.
of keeping them alive, he clearly didn't give a shit at that point. He just wanted to shoot her.
Yeah,
Maybe,
he's panicking. Maybe he's raging. But to be honest, they're.
Well, she doesn't gouge his eye. She pokes him.
She still
She
gets
goes
a
like-
eye though, doesn't she? She gets an eye out.
Well,
You'd be
I doubt-
annoyed.
He was so quick and he looked so weak that I doubt that would have been a proper gouge.
I'm just wondering if it was a bad effect. I've got the movie in the background here. I'm going to try and rewatch it quickly.
It
see
went
if
quick
I
for
can
me.
make
I don't know. It didn't look like she spent a lot of time. She didn't have time to gouge his eye out. It's not like 2 fingers in the eye. That's not going to hurt you. Well, it will hurt.
come
but it's
on.
not
I
gonna-
was going to say that would hurt.
No, I mean it would hurt, but it wouldn't gouge. It wouldn't make you lose your
Yeah,
eyesight.
you'd imagine you'd need to really try to gouge someone's eye out.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
misspoke then, basically. But
I mean, unless someone in the chat has experience of gouging eyes out and wants to correct us.
well, Murgy is claiming that's what an eye gouge looks like. Yeah, he would if she had time to gouge it out.
I've nearly got to it now. Oh yeah, all you actually get is a very quick close up,
Yeah.
and it's right in there. So I think I would rewatch it. Well, I'm not going to convince you to rewatch it.
I'm
I
not
think,
watching that film again.
But I think what you're remembering in a sort of very quick flash isn't so much an explosion, but it is just a thumb very close in on a very zoomed in bit of the face. And it's for about a second at most that you see it, and then she
Yeah.
pulls away and it's a wide shot and he's bleeding. So it's very rushed through.
I suppose give it the benefit of the doubt.
Oh, it
Yeah.
lost my benefit.
Yeah, it's fine.
She gets out, but she took
Yeah.
the gun with her.
Mm.
Logical. At the very least, she's killing them and doing exactly what anybody would do.
Yeah, I mean, look, can we at least give her some praise for remembering the gun? Because
Yeah.
I for my Christmas special, I reviewed the absolute travesty that is the Black Christmas 2019 remake, and in
Ooh.
that one, I'm mostly mad because I forgot to include this in the review. But for reference, there's a scene where a security guard comes in to rescue the girls and is killed. The security guard has a gun. That gun is then available. Those girls then turn up later armed with what? A menorah.
A menorah.
A menorah. I know.
And they
cool
didn't
it with
even
the
use any
anti-Semitic
relevant
remarks,
puns.
but yeah.
You mean the candle?
Yes.
Whoa,
I'm
that's-
not joking. They don't use the gun. They turn
To
up
quote,
with like
to quote Longman, WTF.
They brought a menorah to a gunfight.
Oh, bigora.
absolute shocking.
So,
Anyway, so she
moving on.
remembers the gun. Well done, her.
So
I'll
she
also-
runs out, but she keeps being sick, doesn't she? They're obviously trying to, tell us something here.
I also feel the need to point out, because Harrian would be disappointed if we didn't, that the amount of gore on her dress changes considerably. And there's one series of shots where her dress is 100% red. And then it switches back to this where it's just very, very gory.
I must have missed that because it was going so quickly.
Oh, it stood out to me. Well, I've seen this 3 times now, so I start to notice things. And that one really annoyed me. Anyway, carry
You
on.
think they just let her wear the same thing, right?
I
You'd
have
have thought
started
so.
a stream of excellent puns.
So anyway, she
Oh,
runs
no.
out.
Chat,
sick
cool
again.
it with the anti-Semitic remarks, okay?
I actually have that,
Do it.
Cool it with the anti-Semitic remarks.
So anyway, she runs out. The old nonce is coming after her saying, wait. Somehow he's been stabbed in the... So this is when I found out he was stabbed in the stomach. And I thought, You should be immobilized. You shouldn't be able to move like that. He manages to chase her all the way down the road. Like it is a fair few miles away, clearly, right?
The distance is rather difficult to tell. When you initially see it, it looks like it's actually quite far away because Megan drives a while to it, but then she just runs to it straight away, so it's kind of unclear.
But anyway, they get there. There's a standoff. He's like, "Wait, there's nothing you can do," and the woman says that as well. Just embrace the Lord. He's coming for you, or whatever. The eclipse is happening. And then she's thinking about shooting him. He's like, just do it. Whatever, man. What's done is done. And you're thinking, what do you mean what's done is done? And then she shoots herself.
Well, she's trying to say that she should just shoot him because it doesn't matter because they've succeeded, that the ritual has worked. And that's when she flips it on him. And she's like, okay, cool. I'll just off myself.
And somehow has all her face, all her eyes, everything perfectly fine when the friend literally was vaporized by it.
What if that doesn't vaporize her head because the mystical ritual has worked and she's now under the protection of the Dark Lord?
Plot hole is a plot hole.
Oh, I don't know. It could be mystical.
But then we fast forward, and it turns out that the eclipse somehow happened really quickly. So, but we don't actually know if they did it during the eclipse. In fact, the eclipse was just happening as she killed herself. So it didn't finish or anything. So the ritual's all confused. They don't actually explain it. But she's in hospital, bandaged up, plot armor in just full view. And then there's this nurse who's like, poor girl, giving her an IV. You'll be fine. Then puts her hand on her stomach. You think, why is she doing that? Both of you. Somehow she's pregnant.
Well,
even
it was
though
the person of the ritual.
Even though it was a woman who was on top of her, who doesn't have a penis. Usually in these satanic films, a person has to actually be, in.
She could be a Smurf.
Well, well, hold on there, Mitch. Hold on. This is a perverse, diabolical ritual.
But she drank blood.
It's clearly a magical ritual. Like
even
they're going through this
Mary,
thing. They don't have to.
Even Saint Mary had to go through 9 months of pregnancy.
Would you not say it's suitable to a sort of disgraceful, diabolical inversion of the conception act that it happens
in every
without
horror
penetration, without with just an older woman involved?
That's just, I don't know. I can't buy that, unfortunately. That is jumping the shark. She drank blood, not the white stuff.
Well, yeah, but it's an evil ritual.
Yeah, but again, that just seems like a cop-out, like a really flimsy excuse for she's suddenly pregnant with the Antichrist.
Well, yeah, all the ritual focused on her, like her groin area. That's where they.
But it wasn't a succubus, Queen Boudica. It was just an old woman that looked a bit disfigured. That's all.
Maybe that's why succubus. What a succubus looks like.
But a succubus is an ancient Greek thing, not a Christian thing.
So, I mean, I think, to be honest, this is where the film is leaning. The film has now been leaning very, very heavily on people's suspension of disbelief because, I'm a fan of this film, but being very honest, it is a plot contrivance that Sam can get out. It is a plot contrivance that she's able to get hold of the knife. It is then a plot contrivance that she's able to beat everyone and no one does anything, and that they're all handed the idiot ball, allowing them to be taken out one by one.
Also, the other woman just stays there. All she does is get slapped by Sam, and then she disappears.
Yep.
The power of a slap from Satan.
So,
if it's an homage, Merky, it's not a very good one. And I don't think that's the point either. I really don't. Because then it would be a satire, but it's not a satire.
No, I would say it's an intensifier of some of the tropes that you would see, like they're really amping up the gore that they've managed to get in. But
in the good films, they made sense. In this film, it doesn't make sense.
Oh yeah, this is plot contrivance at this
But
point.
that's not an excuse, Murgy. You can have B-grade popcorn flicks that are fun and still make sense.
Yeah, I mean, as we have said, it's contrivance to get to the end.
And it was grounded all the way through until this point. Like, it could have just been satanic cult thinks they're gonna, get Satan, but they just end up murdering a girl or driving her to suicide. That would have been actually consistent with the film.
Yeah, it switches over in the last minute, and then yes, you're having to lean very heavily on
There's no
banks
law.
of goodwill.
And it lost me completely.
Oh, I hear that. I think I'm quite a bit more forgiving of the ritual.
I just can't rationalize why you like it. I really don't get why you like it with all these glaring flaws.
I think it's because I like the tribute that it does, and I like largely the build-up. I just sort of, it had kind of won me over, which makes me quite forgiving of it. Like, in a way, I was probably a lot harsher on Fright Night 2011.
It's like Mercu in the chat is like, all these grade B slashers look like this. Yeah, but again, that's not an excuse for bad writing. It's just not an excuse. It doesn't make it good.
Yeah, a comparison might be something like, folks, if you remember The Burning from, I want to say that's just shy of the mid-80s. There is the infamous scene where they get a whole load of blood splashed around and off a whole load of people when a group of the minor characters paddle towards a raft or a canoe, I believe it is, and the killer is hiding in there and shoots up and springs up and just starts offing them with the shears. And the editing is doing all the heavy lifting, because if you step back for a minute, you think like, hang on, no one fell into the water and escaped. The killer didn't fall into the water and escape. How is the killer reaching all these people? Blah, blah, blah. It's like, you have to grant it a huge amount of leeway because it is a massive contrivance. And you'll be willing to do it or not. And especially when you're bringing in magical elements. I think the ritual very clearly established it was focused on her womb. But if you're not into that, it's like, yeah, that's not going to win you over. It's not going to work.
I'm into all the occult stuff, in films, but most of the time they show them actually having intercourse. But for whatever reason, this one's magically pregnant.
I don't know how many times I've seen it where it's got intercourse. Like,
it seems like a lot of them. I've seen quite a few where they have to do it for whatever reason.
I mean, maybe it's kind of the idea is that it's like a perverted mirror image of the Immaculate Conception in Christianity.
But they never built it up to say that this was in the universe. It just appears out of nowhere.
It's asking you to take a lot on trust, which I think if the film hasn't got you along with it up to this point, you won't. I didn't dislike it. I think I was more spooked by it the first time I saw it. The second time around, I was seeing more of the gaping plot holes. I think the plot was sort of lacy.
I could have done with maybe a scene where instead of the ramp up and then back away of the tension, if she had maybe managed to avoid the tricks to get her drugged up, just have her sort of investigate and uncover maybe Mrs. Ullman or someone, and Mrs. Ullman just basically says, sod it, look, the eclipse is happening soon, we were trying to drug you, we're going to have to do this another way, try and corner her around the house and get to sort of drop some of the lore there. You could have had a scene like that that varied it a bit, I think. Yeah, it is a very cheap film. It is very, very
I don't mind cheap films. I don't think the budget is an excuse either. It's not.
So we could have had some opportunities to drop a bit more lore and try and play on maybe the idea that they could promise her even more money or try and convince her that this'll grant her great powers, great riches, or it's an honor to be the vessel for our Lord. Something like that would have been an excuse to maybe give some of these actors a bit more to do.
Yeah, definitely. And I think when you've got someone like, Tom Noonan or some of the other people, then it would have been good to give them a bit more and just reduce some of the padding a little bit.
But we end up where we end up in the hospital. It's sort of dragged out because, frankly, if you're seeing a hospital, you know what's gone on. Yeah, she has survived, and they then drop the. I think we kind of knew the baby was still going to be alive. You get a music that is also a slight, subtle tribute to some of the Jerry Goldsmith soundtrack for The Omen. It's not as direct, like we're not talking as direct as the Reanimator soundtrack completely ripping off Psycho. Yeah. I think they did get sued for that, and
Fair
it's
enough.
it's an homage, guys. It's an homage.
No, that's an earworm.
Yeah. And but
they play
I got
so
the
much
vibes.
in that film.
Yeah. I got the vibes of the Jerry Goldsmith Omen soundtrack.
I didn't get the soundtrack, but I got the Omen vibe just from it's the Antichrist.
Well, of course. Yeah. I'll tell you another thing that made huge use of the Omen soundtrack that no one was talking about was the Fear Street movies that just came out. The second one, Fear Street, was it 1978? They are constantly dropping the Omen soundtrack in there, and no one's talking about it. They're all like, oh, there's this pop song, this cool thing. I was like, darn it, you missed one of the most obvious tributes. Weak. Anyway, sorry, it bugged me. Weak and pathetic indeed. So that's pretty much caught us up to the end of the film. Folks, I would like you to get your scores in the chat. We are summing things up. So get your scores out of 12 going in the chat. I'm going to go around people. Wholesome Waifu, I would like your thoughts and score. Sorry, if you don't have anything else to say on the film.
I can round up my thoughts, I think, apparently. I didn't dislike it. I'm definitely not as kind of violently feeling the Satanic Panic as Mitch. But I can see the flaws, and it didn't really, second time around, it didn't really hold the tension for me. So I'll give it like a 7-ish, 8-ish out of 12.
7 or 8-ish? Okay.
Maybe with a gherkin on top.
I think it does deserve a pickle. They definitely get themselves into a
One
pickle
of your
with the
moldy
writing.
ones.
Yeah, I've tried pickling gherkins again. It messed up again. Third time's a charm. Mitch, would you like to sum up your thoughts on and why you're giving this a 12 out of 12 with cheese, glowing full burger review?
I'll give it a 3. Basically,
Spicy.
the aesthetic is fine.
Yeah,
I like the fact that it didn't look like any film that came out during that time. Although there were other retro type films as well, but it did its very best to look like a film from the era, and I think it succeeded in that. There was no bad performances, surprisingly. I can't say that anybody really stood out, so that's fine. But there are bad films that make no sense, like The Room, which I can enjoy because it's entertaining. It's legitimately entertaining. This was not. It was a boring film, and I can't forgive boring films. A bad film can be a bad film, but if it's entertaining, I can forgive it. But I can't forgive this. It was boring, and then it asked a lot of me as well. And it didn't, to me, it didn't build up tension because it was so boring. And if those attempts were to build up tension, then they were so subtle that they completely passed me by. They were obviously trying to go for a Halloween kind of thing where, he's there and he's stalking them and you always know somebody's there. But obviously they were trying to do it in a different way, and it just ended up looking like a bunch of montages, and then punctuated with a little bit of plot's moving, and then the plot's gone, and then at the end with the plot holes and everything and the complete 180 and the jumping of the shark, it lost me completely. Just cannot forgive It's a 3. It's
a
only
3.
a 3 because there's no bad performances and the aesthetic is fine. And the
There
gore's
is-
The
good
main
too.
girl is cute.
There
And
is
she's very cute. She's very
yeah.
cute.
That is the lowest score that has ever been given. Kudos. Kudos. Yeah, that's fair.
Do you know, to be honest, when I saw it, I was worried that I'd seen the wrong film.
I fully admit I am being extremely charitable to this movie. I am looking over. Well, I'd like to say I'm aware of its flaws. I'm just very forgiving of them. Here's a suggestion. Oh, actually, it's okay. It's Fez. That is interesting news about pickling because that's a problem I've had.
If it's on the top of a pickle that's stuck its head out of the liquid, is that a problem?
Oh, Pickle Rick.
The problem is one of my pickles busted out. So
They did it now.
yeah, John
It
D
busted
let me
out.
down. I've been following Mr. D's instructions, and it's
She was
twice.
tricked by the pickle man again.
Oh,
What's he
gutted.
called, Rick?
So, how about a suggestion before I give my score? I'll tell you what. I'll give my thoughts on my score, and then I'll put a question to you. I'm extremely forgiving of this film. I love the aesthetic. I find the actors charming. I quite like the very slow build of tension that sort of reminded me a bit more of, say, Don't Look Now would be the closest one. Whereas but fully admitting it is much slower than other films of the era. So your Black Christmases and your When a Stranger Calls give you a lot more action and a lot more movement right from the start. I like the gore we get. I like the visuals and the design, but I would fully concur that basically, even though I enjoy the ride and some of the fun touches like the dance montage, ultimately here it is padded. It is padded to filth, and at the end it does break down a bit. It breaks down in a way that kind of reminds me a lot of some of the other things Ty West has done. So his segment on VHS sort of had a similar thing where it didn't flow as well, even if it looked quite good. So for me, I'm pretty forgiving. I'd suggest people give it a try as an interesting film. For me, it's a 6. It's a 6 with a fair amount of cheese on it. I certainly liked it less on this rewatch than I did the initial time. A lot of the stuff that works well is sort of that first time surprise, especially Megan getting capped in the head. That is a lovely shocker the first time you see it. So yeah, it's probably a 6 for me. But I would put a proposal to you both. Do you think this could be a much better film if it were, say, not a feature film, but put more in a, say, Black Mirror style format or an Outer Limits format? Basically, if they had to tell the same story in 45 minutes.
They would have to add a lot more plot and character development because it would still have the same flaws. It just wouldn't be as boring.
The padding would go. Yeah.
They just need to actually give us some lore and world building, character building, so we actually do care about this person. Because I didn't care. I don't know this person. Because they just say a lot of things, but they don't really show it, and it's just so threadbare. And also get rid of the meta stuff as well, because that was just an excuse for bad writing. They're like, okay, we know this is shit, so we'll just pretend we're self-aware.
Yeah, I think condensing it right down would probably help. Or alternatively, like stripping out the padding and replacing it with things to build character and tension a bit more, give a bit more background. Put a bit more in there, really.
Yeah, I don't need as much lore. I'm fine with the level of suggestion. So I'd say something like Rosemary's Baby does not give you it barely gives you anything in the way of lore.
Well, I mean more like for the magic side of things. If they were going to go for the magic thing, you need something to say magic is in this world, essentially. Even if they don't believe it, the proposition that it's there, that's what's important. Kind of like, no way is it magic. Oh, there's magic. The old person shouting at you,
I don't think I agree. Like Rosemary's Baby, I think is a good comparison because it doesn't really tell you that there's magic in the world. There's a lot of, is it all in her head? Is it all in her head? Until suddenly it's very definitely not all in her head.
Yeah.
And I think it does that quite well. I think it's just that you need to really be along with the characters. And you need to also feel the tension to be able to kind of go along with it, which this kind of doesn't.
Yeah, I think I'd say there's divided opinion on that one, but that is absolutely cool. Yeah. Folks, I would say that is probably everything we've got on House of the Devil, a divisive film. I came away liking it a little bit less than when I first watched it a few times. I would still recommend it to people as an interesting experiment. It is relatively short, but obviously we've all agreed it could be shorter. I gather that my recommendation will not be unanimously held among the panel.
I think it's worth the watch.
Yeah,
I wouldn't waste my time, guys.
That's absolutely fine. So with that, I'm going to round things off. I'm going to thank all the panelists. Thank you to my wife for stepping in. And
No worries.
I hope you enjoyed it.
I hope I didn't
enjoyed
embarrass
it.
you too much.
I've been waiting for this. I've been waiting for this moment. I'm not gonna lie. I've been fishing for an appearance for a while.
You've been
I just
great.
wanted to talk about Fright Night, really.
Oh, look, we've
because I sent you my theory, didn't I?
I liked it. Yeah, don't worry. I'm so glad we got you on. I mean, you've heard we've got quite a few up, and it sounds like you'd be up for some of the silent movies as well.
Yeah, definitely. Because I have a soft spot for all the silence, no matter what genre, really.
Wow.
There's just something about silent films. Like they could do films that you can't really do anymore. Like there's a whole film about the crowd, or there's entire films about just a thing, and it works because it's visual. You can't do that anymore.
It is very hard to do. I want to do a whole thing on Todd Browning as well, because it's like, the 1931 Dracula, we know Freaks. And it's like, I know I personally, I've basically stopped there.
I think he did the Cat and Canary, didn't he?
I'll have a look. Let's get Googling.
Check. Yeah.
All right, you have a check and let me know. But I
it
want
was his birthday last month.
Oh. Yeah, I want to look around and sort of do the lesser known Todd Brownings and maybe find a gem that maybe people won't be as aware of there.
No, it wasn't him. I think it was a German guy who did that, actually. Yeah, it was a German director who did that.
Okay. Well, we didn't entirely agree on the film, but you make your case in a very persuasive way, and I can tell there's a heck of a lot more that you've got to say, and I'd love to hear. So we have to have you back on.
Definitely.
And chat, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope everyone who was watching on Catch Up enjoyed it. I will announce the horror homework for next week, and then we'll just go on to shilling opportunities.
Fez, if she ever lets me back on, I promise to embarrass her a lot more.
Oh dear. Right, I'm looking at my spreadsheet because it slipped my mind. It gets a little late and I forget what I'm doing. Right. Our next horror homework, I've sort of teased this already. We're going into the Korean arc. We're starting with A Tale of Two Sisters. If you like Korean horror,
yes,
there's a good chance you know it. Be patient. We are going in with something a little more mainstream. I'm going to talk about the sort of parallel arc that was happening at the same time that we were getting the Platinum Dunes wave. We also got the wave of J-horror, K-horror remakes. I'm going to talk about that phenomenon. But your horror homework is A Tale of Two Sisters. Make sure you watch the Korean original, not the American remake. and then we are going into slightly more obscure Korean territory, which possibly will be a nightmare for people to find. And I might just give you a bit more notice so you can get your hands on it. So once again, horror homework for next week. You heard it here first. Tale of Two Sisters. And please watch it subbed, not dubbed, if you don't mind. With that said,
Time to chill.
Time to chill. I'd just like to thank everyone again. You know, Mitch, we got you in sooner than it was looking like it was going to be a pain to book you in, then this actually ended up working. So this is fantastic. Is there anything you'd like to shill, sir?
Just my YouTube channel, which is very hard to find, but I will link it in the description for some of you, so you can click it. Let me just find it. Actually, let me just get on here.
If you put it in the private chat, I'll post it.
Yeah, here it is. If you want top-notch political commentary and social commentary, I'm your boy. Although I am planning on expanding that a little bit more into more philosophy, and I might try my hand at films and maybe music in an update video that did surprisingly well. You know, the one that you watched with my new camera, I think it was.
Oh, yeah.
I do lay out my plans, but I have to get through the big projects first.
We actually started talking because I was like, oh, Mitch, you've got a really decent shot there. That's really nicely composed.
Oh, thank you.
I said nothing about the content. I was just like, hey.
Well,
really
it was
nice
that update video. There was not much really to say. So, but yeah, I'm planning on doing more stuff and trying to expand my horizons, you know. So I can definitely tease the next project, which was mentioned in the video, kind of, and it's going to be an exploration of a topic, not a topic. It's an idea by a man called Jose Ortega y Gasset in the book called The Revolt of the Masses, and that is it's basically, I'm going to simplify it horribly. You need to actually read the book to understand. It's actually quite simple. There's the idea of the masked man, and the masked man, contrary to what you may think, is not a class thing. It's a qualitative thing. And the masked man is basically the average person, as in the midwits, as in the average Joe on the street, the NPC. And what has happened is, during the late 19th, maybe the 20th century, they ended up taking over society. They decided, actually, we're going to lead. And it led to things like communism and fascism and things like that, and just the general decline of civilization and culture. Whereas before that, it used to be that they recognized that, yeah, these people who are better than us, regardless of class, should be the ones running things, whether that be as a king or even just as, you know, somewhere low down. It's generally acknowledged, yeah.
That sounds like a sort of quite interesting, spicy contender to elite theory, which has been what's driven a lot of...
Yeah, I've been trying to shill this philosopher for ages to people, but I don't think anybody's read him yet. Scrump's heard of him, though, so that's good. And honestly, when I read that, and this was a book written in 1933, it's very, very pertinent. You'll read it and you'll be like, oh my God. It'll blow your mind, trust me. At least it blew my mind.
I'm intrigued. All right, fantastic. I'm looking forward to that. I think we have to talk a little more on these lines. Wholesome Waifu. I know you don't have a channel, but I'll just reiterate, it was really nice you coming on. I know you wanted to get in and maybe talk about some of the real life aspects of real life inspiration for some of the films that we're covering, and I know we've got one in mind for that.
Yes, there are a couple of really gruesome cases that I want to flex my true crime muscles over that are lesser known inspirations for some of the films like Psycho or similar. But the fact, when you realize it happened in real life, it's just a bit nightmarish. It's quite fascinating.
And we aren't talking Ed Gein here, which I think a fair few people know about.
Most people know about Ed Gein. There's a couple of people who are less well known and arguably creepier. Although, to be fair, a belt made of nipples is hard to top.
Wasn't he a clown?
You're thinking of John Wayne Gacy.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, very interesting guy. Maybe we could end up doing a whole thing on clown horror, which I have complicated opinions over. But I'll also say, you know, nice things about my wife on stream. Why not? a lot of the reason this channel exists is because we would get into the habit of walking, just like walking back from a film, or we'd have a watch and we'd do a full hour of just like big story deconstruction and end up like having rewritten the whole movie on the way back. And it's sort of it was a nice reminder that really like talking about this stuff, and you gave me the prompt really to start doing it.
Well, no worries. I thought you'd be good at it, and also it might be a distraction from talking my ear off about it.
I just say I've
See?
never been so much. I've never said so much in front of two people than this lovely couple, guys.
Machiavellian, good Machiavellianism. All right, and well, it's not the 2.5 hour standard that I've been aiming for, but I think this was still quite brisk, still very efficient, and it was certainly not the 4 hours that we spent discussing Army of the Dead. Oh dear, guys.
Oh dear. I've purposefully avoided any Zack Snyder film since I saw Batman vs Superman. He has no talent. He's a hack.
Yeah, I have a feeling we got lucky with Dawn of the Dead, and Sucker Punch should have been the warning for all of us, but hey.
To be honest, I thought 300 was the warning. When I first saw that, I was like, what is this?
Ooh,
I mean, admittedly, I was a kid that hadn't read the comic. So now that I know it was a comic, it makes more sense. Because I'm a massive history nerd, and I actually have a degree in it. So when I watched it, I was like, what is this? I had no context other than I watched it. So, but now that I understand it's a comic book, I'm much more forgiving now. Although it wasn't for me anyway.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. All right. With all that said, thanks again to my guests. Thank you to everyone who's watched live for keeping the chat nice and lively. It's great to hear from you. You know your assignment for next week. It is a tale of two sisters, the Korean one. And thank you for everyone who's watched on catch up. I hope you enjoy it. I have another sneaky video coming out this week, which will annoy absolutely no one. I'm probably dropping it Thursday, but I've got to tinker with it a tiny bit more. That is all from me. So thanks, y'all.